Monday, June 6, 2022, public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. I am Susan Klausmith. I am the chair of the commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, the architectural details, and the wall sections. The staff will then present their staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will begin asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When coming to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because these 3 minutes do go by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. We will then close the public hearing, and the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review or HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. Please note that the ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. Now, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and I will have my fellow commissioners introduce themselves, starting on my right with Mario.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair.
Brent Taylor, I'm a building contractor.
Dan Myers, I'm an architect.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
And tonight with us, we have our attorney, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel, Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Elaine Lund, and Aminta Owens. We'll move on to the reading of the minutes. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes from May 2nd, 2022? If not, we will go ahead with a motion to enter those into the record.
I move to approve the minutes from May 2nd.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this evening's public hearing. Just a couple points of order. I do have 2 months worth of administrative approvals for the months of April and May 2022 to enter into the record. I'll provide those to the clerk for the agenda, or for the minutes rather. And I did want to take a moment to welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Prokop, who is in an architectural seat. We thank you very much for your patience during the appointment process and for your willingness to serve on the commission. With that, just one last point of order. We're moving into the summer months right now. We're actually receiving a still very significant amount of applications for reviews in the historic districts. So as you're planning out your summer and perhaps your vacation, if you would just keep in mind to let the staff know if you have any pending vacation time, and we will accommodate the hearing to the best of our ability. With that, I think we'll go ahead and move on to the disclosure of ex parte communication and conflicts of interest with our legal counsel.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kamari Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
No.
I have none.
Additionally, will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
None.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, I believe we do not have any continuations this evening, so we're going to move on to the swearing. Anyone in the audience who's going to be providing testimony or public comment this evening, if you would please stand and raise your right hand for the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you will be giving today will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And with that, we are ready for the first case, which Ms. Lund will introduce. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The first item on the agenda this evening is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District at the address of 507 East Hughes Street. This is case number ARC 22-25. The request is for the demolition of a contributing structure, and I will walk you through the photo essay and a few pictures of that particular property in just a moment here. When considering a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of a contributing structure, our city's code of ordinances outlines certain criteria that are required for the applicant to submit and for you to use as you make your decision, and those are found in section 27-116F of our code. You will see those criteria in the staff report here on pages 3 and 4, and then the staff report also notes the method in which the ARC should consider the demolition application. So with that, I will move into the photo essay. First, we have the 1920s Sanborn map of this area. This is the north end of the Tampa Heights Historic District. The subject site is shown in green, a little to the right of the screen on Hughes Street, just on the block directly east of Central Avenue. Here again, you see the subject site in green. This is the entire historic district here with the local historic district outlined in red and the National Register Historic District in blue. This is the present day aerial of the subject site outlined in green. You can see its proximity to the interstate. Again, on the south side of Hughes Street. And this is the subject property, 507 East Hughes Street. The property is a 1924 wood frame structure. This is looking at the east side of the building. You can see that it is currently being supported or braced toward the rear. This is the property directly to the east at 509 Hugh. Then looking at the west side of the subject site, you can see at the roof line that there has been an attempt at doing some repair work to the site. And then this is the property directly to the east at 505 East Hugh. This photo is looking east toward the interstate along Hughes Street. And this photo is looking west toward Central Avenue on Hughes Street. So the subject site would be to your left. This is the rear of the house in question. You can see that there is a bit of damage to the structure and the upper gable there. This is a closer view of the area in question. This is a view of the area that's currently having to be braced near the rear of the house on that east side. This is a view of the roof currently, looking at it from the east, I believe. Same shot there. And finally, a view looking along the house from the north front of the house to the south, along that east side of the building. So with that, I'd like to have the applicant come forward and present the information that you will need to make your decision in this case.
Good evening. My name is David Thomas. We are representing the homeowner of Kim Thornfeld. I'm with Dorsinski and Thomas, which is a partner with DADC Collaborative. And we've been with the homeowner since, our company is out of St. Petersburg, Florida. Address is 144 Northeast Lincoln Circle North, zip code 33702. We were contacted by the homeowner middle to late of last year. So we kind of came into the situation. The home was already in the condition that's currently through the pictures. We did do a site visit. I did not personally go into the home. Just walking around the outside of the structure seems a little not structurally sound as far as going through and looking at everything, but it looks like it's been exposed to the weather for some time. We did get several estimates from 3 different contractors to rehab the home. We did present, 2 of those came in kind of late, but we did submit one of those to the council. The other ones, like in any bidding process, one's pretty high, one's kind of a little bit low, and one's right in the middle. But it looks like it's averaging in the mid to 250 to 275 for rehab. They're assuming to, with the damage to the roof and to the wall on the outside, as far as having to strip the home down and go, and assuming some of the floor joists are beyond disrepair with the roof being opened up for that time. So they're kind of rebuilding it from the ground up and trying to save the home. I'm sure there's certain parts of the home that can be saved, but when it's in there that bad, it's used better to start from the foundation up. And then when working with homes like that, we can't assume footers or foundations, so we'd have to beef those up and then work our way back up, strapping the home down to current codes. But I do have those estimates here to turn in for record.
Can you display them on the sheet, display right there?
I'll go to the last page here. Oh, sorry.
So they have a copy of this one already.
Okay,
You
gotcha.
can put it as reference.
Okay. Okay, yeah, this is the one that I think you already have a copy of here. This is a company out of St. Petersburg that we do a lot of work with. I had them go just do a rough estimate with that. And if you look at the back here, they're in the 276 range with that. Very reputable company. We deal with them on a lot of different projects. The second one is another company that we deal with a lot. They do a lot of renovations and new construction.
Can you pull that down so we can see what company that's from?
Oh. There you go. They're on the higher side, but in talking with them, they know when they're doing renovations like this, especially when you're going back with any type of siding, that there's a lot more labor and material. So they have to factor in the worst case, on some of these projects. And they are based on someone if they had to completely go back from scratch to rebuild it, so, which essentially we would end up doing. The next one is, this is actually from the contractor that the homeowner had been talking with for a while. I've talked with him several times. I did go through his quote, and there's several things that he's not factoring in. One of the main things is replacing the entire AC system on that home. So you can kind of see that. So he's very low on his quote. So. I guess normally we throw the high one out and the low one out, and we just kind of go with the middle one usually, so just for a good cost analysis. As you can see, there's several things left off on this one, as far as even appliances or stuff. Because I don't know the history of the home and what the prior permits that were pulled out on the home. We're just assuming it's going to be a full rewire, stripping down the interior walls down to the studs, and just kind of regoing. It's going to need a completely new roof system. And again, just inspecting the floor systems and making sure they would be structurally sound. So we're assuming the worst on something like that.
This is what's required through the code. You probably want to go through and touch on these things and make sure that,
Okay.
so you might want to just begin here, you know, the alternatives to demolition, you know, are there any alternatives? If so, if not, then move on to the next one.
Okay. No, I apologize. Actually, his contractor was supposed to be here for the demolition part, so some of this I'm a little behind on here. As far as alternatives, we're definitely leaning towards the demolition part. That's why we're here. Relocation, I wouldn't feel safe trying to move a structure like that. I don't foresee being able to save anything in the building to keep it on the site. And again, the relocating would not be feasible for this type of structure. I guess everybody's aware of supply issues now as far as starting new construction. The pre-mentioned contractors that we deal with, they're good at getting things scheduled and getting starting at a time period, and once they can break ground, they can kind of give a good definite time as far as a build out. But they're looking probably 8 to 12 months max on that. And I would assume the insurance company is recommending the home be demolished as well. So I would say on the that would be the economic hardship to try to save something like that. It's going to be, I think, would be cost more than just to demolish it and build something that's going to actually work with the homeowner. Because he's moving from California. This is a home he would move into. Let's see. As far as the appraisal for the current condition of the home, I think that's in the insurance report. Again, I apologize on some of the stuff. And definitely before demo, I can see on here as far as reusing any parts of the home or repurposing it on the property. If there's any historical or time period correct stuff in there, it'd be nice to try to save some of the trim or something that's in there that we could use. Again, I haven't been in the home to see what would be salvageable inside there. And to my knowledge, that the property will not be income producing, it will be the residence for the homeowner. And I don't have this other information as far as the real estate taxes that he's paid. I'm not sure exactly how long he's on the property, honestly. I think it is strictly owned by him and his wife.
Items are in the code, you might want to, if you want to touch on anything particular that you want them to retain, like about structural, stable, or structural condition or anything like that.
Okay.
Could you, I think you're trying to do this, but if
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
you have the staff report, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So on page 3 and 4, there's basically a matrix of things that we need, and you're kind of you're hitting most of them.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
if we could go in order, we'd be sure that you got all the ones that were required.
Okay.
That's right. That's all we've got.
Okay, I guess the first one here, as far as alternatives to demolition and relocation, kind of like it was stated, as far as per engineering report, as well as insurance company assessments on the property, it's in imminent danger of collapsing and cannot be relocated. Yeah, the same thing as far as being retained on the site. The insurance company, the property is, again, in imminent danger and collapsing and cannot be rebuilt. Whether relocating the landmark or building or structure is appropriate and feasible. Again, they're referring back to the imminent danger and collapsing of the building. In here, I can see what they're saying, 6 to 10 months, depending on permit design approval. But again, once they break ground, I would say the low end 6, the high end 12, depending on weather and supply issues. And I've had the conversation with the homeowner several times, as it's stated here, it's a liability for him and the surrounding properties. It should have been fenced off a long time ago, in my opinion, the entire property. And here, it's as far as him donating any part of the structure for some of the companies that take that the trim work and things and repurpose that for other construction. They're showing a cost estimate for demolition at $7,900. And the different reports we talked about as far as rehabilitation for bringing back the structural integrity we just went over. And the estimated market value is would be listed in the insurance report, which I do not have on me right now. I apologize. And it's the next line here. It says, all doors, windows, trim, and cabinets that are able to be salvaged were given to architectural salvage. I think the roof damage is over the kitchen area, so it would definitely be the trim and the rest of the house and any moldings. And it's shown that the owner did pay, back in 2015, June of 2015, he paid $60,000 for the property. And he is listing the gross revenue for that period was $23,000, and net income was $1,700 for the same 2-year period. And there was no debt on the property in the last 2 years. Recent appraisals, they have none. Property was previously rented at $1,200 to the same tenant. Assessed value in 2019 was $53,879. Assessed value in 2020 was $59,267. Property taxes paid in 2020 was $1,524. Property taxes in 2021, $1,624 or 42. And I guess it is owned by a sole proprietorship. That's it. It's open to any questions.
Does that conclude your presentation to the board?
For the demolition, yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The staff finds this application complies with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Section 27-116F, 1 and 3, with the documents that have been submitted. In the staff report, there was an evaluation of the application submission and exhibits provided to staff. There are items A through M that are required per the code. The majority of those items required were touched on in the letter that is immediately attached to your staff report from Gem Development. Additionally, there's a letter in here attached to the staff report from the consulting engineer and an appraisal report. The information from the tax collector and the warranty deed and additional photos are also attached to this report. So the ARC shall consider the effects of this proposed demolition on any adjacent property and the historic district in general. The ARC shall negotiate to see if an alternative to demolition can be found. The ARC shall also study the question of economic hardship for the application and shall determine whether the property can be put to reasonable beneficial use without approval of the demolition application. So the what you're here to consider essentially is whether there is an economic hardship, which is the inability of the property to be put to reasonable beneficial use. I am available if you have any questions, and with that, I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now open the case up to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against the case? And this is for the demolition portion of this case at this time. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the hearing. And commissioners will begin asking questions in the following order. The site regarding, well, there really isn't any of this, regarding everything that was presented thus far in the hearing by the applicant. We'll start on my right. Mr. Sutton, if you have any questions for the applicant?
I have a number of questions, please. First of all, do you have a photographic record as to the existing condition of this structure that is a bit more complete than the presentation photographs that we've seen so far?
I personally do not, no, sir.
You do not.
No, sir.
I understand from the commission, from the staff report, that you still have outstanding an estimate from an architect, real estate consultant, or an appraiser, or other real estate professional experienced in rehabilitation as to the economic feasibility of rehabilitation for the structure. Is this a work in progress, or do you actually have a document in hand at this time?
We have a letter in our report. It's,
We have it from the engineer.
we have it from an architect licensed in the state. It's either an engineer or an architect
I
that's
did
required.
not see that.
It's behind the GEM report.
That's the
Livingstone.
structural engineers.
That is an architect, forensic architect.
Well, it's Livingstone, I call that the Livingstone consultant letter.
Okay?
Do we, in that regard, do we have a representative here tonight from Livingstone?
No, sir.
No.
No.
I have no further question.
Has anyone been on the interior of the home to inspect?
We have not. No, we're mainly involved with the new proposed home to build on the site. So we're not in depth involved with the demolition on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the distance and the rafter spans are? Do you have any idea?
I know that the existing home was 24 feet across. Let me just double check that.
But are the rafters on 16s, 24s, 36?
Oh, the separation. I mean, I would assume from that time period, it's normally, it could be a 16 or 24. It really depends on, I did not look up in there and see that. no.
Okay. And it's hard to tell from the pictures I've looked at as far as the foundation.
It was originally a pier home, and then it filled in between the piers. So that's why we were assuming, we do a lot of renovations, and so we don't like to assume, and we have to go back and rebuild it and stabilize it. So we would have to undercut that existing pier, put a new pad footer underneath it. We can't assume there's rebar inside that, so we would literally just rebuild the pier to tie into the floor system properly, and then work our way up to the roof. That's why we're, to piece, we could, I mean, I'm sure this home could be pieced back together, but structurally sound, I'm not sure if I would want it to be without going through it 100%. We do a lot of conventionally framed roofs now because we're having trouble with getting trusses made in the time period. So I would assume this could go back and tie that in, but now we're tying into walls that aren't properly tied down to the beams or the trusses or the floor joist. So it's a little hard to stabilize that without having to rebuild the entire ceiling or just waiting for the new trusses to come in to build it, to secure the home properly.
It looks like to me you are planning to, if you were to renovate this home, you would be demoing it back down to the framing on the interior.
You would almost have to. I mean, just looking at some of the pictures here with the roof line, how far back that has been exposed, and how the ridge beam has failed a long time ago, which is pretty common for homes like this. And if they're not, if somebody hasn't gone in there with collar ties, they will essentially try to push the walls out, and that's what it looks like. This roof collapsed at that point. And that's why the eastern wall is being supported with boards on the outside to help keep it from fully collapsing.
And I see the report from the architect, but has a structural engineer taken a look at this?
That I do not know. I don't know that. Yeah.
That's all I have for you.
We're on enough job sites, so when you start seeing stuff like this, there's other issues that's causing that. Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay. I have no questions at this time.
Okay.
In regards to the financial hardship associated with renovation, the the report shows that the client or the homeowner is willing and planning to rebuild. What, do you have an estimated cost to rebuild a similar structure?
If it was to be demoed,
Correct.
that should have been provided by his contractor, Ken. Let me see if, they gave it a range, and we tell people now, if a contractor gives you a fixed price, it's gonna be kind of tough because the way the material goes up and down. I did talk to Ken. He originally said on the low end, 180 a square foot. On the high end, probably 240, 250, depending on, I know lumber stabilized recently, but labor's up, so they just can't put a number on it until they get going. A lot of contractors going down to cost plus because they just can't put a number on it. If they put a number on it, they have to be up really high just to cover themselves. But somewhere between 180 to 250 a square foot.
When was this estimate done for the SDF contracting? I see it says today's date.
Correct.
They actually did it within the last 30 days, this estimate that we have.
Correct, yeah.
So the numbers you're throwing at us, the 180 to 250 square foot, those are current thoughts in the last 30 days that are consistent with this window that we're talking about, with the estimates you have for the demo and
Yeah.
remodeling. So if the house was demolished, the timeline for beginning the work of the new, when would that occur?
We would try to coordinate the best we could with going through the process again to get the new construction approved and getting through permitting. I'm sure the homeowner wants the home demoed as soon as possible, just as a liability issue with the property, because somebody's parking beside that home too. I'm not sure if it's a neighbor, so keeping people off that property. I'm sure if a good enough storm came through, that wall would finish collapsing, because it's only 2 or 3 2x4s holding it up. But they would try to coordinate that the best we could to demolish it and get started with construction immediately. So I can't answer that until we get through, get submitted the plans and the permitting, and I would assume 4 to 8 months, or 4 to 8 weeks to get approval for the new permit.
But is that not as similar whether or not it's new or if it's partial demolition and renovation remediation, that timeline to get to construction?
To get somebody in there to start renovating it right now, you're probably looking at the same time period to get approval for new plans. So we're looking at the same time period for that. Now, I'm sure they could immediately get in there and to shore the home up a little bit better than what it is now, just for a safety issue, or just go ahead and fence the entire property off to keep people off of it. But we're probably looking at the same time period because crews are just so far behind right now.
Okay, and then what's the anticipated square foot for the new, if the new was approved?
It's going to be slightly bigger because he wanted to maximize the setbacks on the left side anyway. The house is just shy of 1,800. It's 1,787. That's total with front and rear porch.
Okay, thank you.
So living square footage would be 1,534.
1534?
Yes, ma'am.
That's AC.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's my question for now. Mr. Huff.
Is there any actual verification of what caused the damage? Because you've stated in your presentation that it was rented. Someone was living in the house. It was income producing. When did that stop, and what happened to cause this damage?
I honestly don't know what caused that. I'm assuming, since there's such large oak trees out there, something gave way, but you can see that roof had been sagging, which again is very common for those homes.
I understand, but it was occupied, people were living in it, people were renting and living in it, and somehow or another, something happened.
Yes, sir.
To cause this damage. one of the reports, I think, read that perhaps it was a roofer during a re-roofing, and they placed all the shingles in one location and overloaded the roof,
Okay,
in which case, you know, that would be, if there was a Florida licensed contractor, there would be recourse
sure,
for that to have happened.
okay.
And were any estimates for the reconstruction, repair, rehabilitation received from any contractors who have any experience in historic preservation? Because I noted in some of the estimates, they all said, replace every piece of exterior shingles, every exterior piece of siding, every piece of trim, every floorboard. It's all, that's not how renovations of historic properties happen. You preserve as much as possible and only repair what's needed. So were any estimates from contractors that have any historic preservation experience?
SDF is a two-generational company over in St. Pete. They do a lot of work with Eckerd College and a lot of the Old Northeast and some of the homes down there. I trust them. I told them to assume the worst if we had to start rebuilding this home. And I'm sure, like many people know, trying to save something's going to cost a lot more money to try to save and preserve. Some things like this, it's going to cost more to try to save it than it would be to rebuild it. But I mean, they do, and I've been doing this for 20-plus years, so I've seen enough to.
Okay, because the estimates didn't reflect, you know, saving or restoring or fixing anything. They
Well,
just said replace everything.
I asked them to assume the worst. What's the worst number it would take to renovate this home?
Okay.
Yeah.
When, and you don't know when the rental stopped?
I don't. They did list it partial for 2021. Let me see.
I think it was, December 9th, 2021.
Well, that's when they had, okay.
They didn't list a time period on that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I got mixed up with the assessed value and the taxes. So.
That's right, because they have until December as their gross revenue.
I guess I have a question regarding all the estimates in that, you know, they were told to assume the worst without having a report that described exactly what the issues were inside and exterior and what could be saved and what couldn't be saved. Because I don't think we have that report.
I did send them the exact report, and all the pictures of the home, and going through that. And again, I deal with them on several projects. We've probably done dozens of projects over the years. And knowing when we try to go into a home like that, especially the wall that's leaning out, you have to start from the bottom up. And a lot of times that perimeter beam is rotted or termite damaged, and so we have to rebuild the perimeter beam.
That's all assumptions.
Yeah.
There's no report stating what's
Right.
there, so I'm a little worried about that.
Well, we were assuming when the insurance company said to knock it down, that we were going off, that they had sent somebody out there to inspect the home, so we were just going off of what their report is.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have no questions.
I have a question for Elaine. One of the items that we're meant to evaluate is the effect of the proposed demolition on adjacent properties and the relationship to the historic district in general. Do we have any information on this block on the age of the existing homes or the quality of the existing homes?
I do not have the ages of the homes at hand here. What I can show you is, if I go back up in the photo presentation,
Can we see Elaine's
Screen, please.
presentation for a moment?
it's a little blurry, but I can show you the map of the historic district. You can see that the shaded in houses are the ones that contribute to the district on this particular block. The corner properties are contributing here on the south side. I believe the property at 505 appears to be non-contributing, but the remainder along the block are. Across the street, we do see some non-contributing, a few more non-contributing structures and 3 contributing structures on the north side.
Elaine, we can't see any shading. They all look white.
Yeah, most of those homes still look like from the same period. I mean, I wish they could have addressed this issue sooner and saved this house, because it would blend in with the street.
Let's see.
I have another question for staff. This may go to, oh, Kamaria left the room. I'll wait for Kamaria to come back.
I've got a question for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
So the three that have given the estimates, the three contractors,
Yes, sir.
has any of them actually been to the site?
Ken, the first one, the one that was very low, but I think he wasn't addressing the AC system or fully rewiring the home. Because I'm assuming, we have not looked up the permit, I'm assuming the electrical's pretty old and just have to rewire the entire home.
And as
But
far as the cost to rent the renovations, you received a quote for approximately $154,000, $276,000, and $364,000. Is that correct?
Correct, that's from Ken, the original contractor.
And your new, to rebuild approximately the same size would be about $240,000 to $331,000 based on the numbers that you gave?
Depending on the supply and the cost of, we had trusses that are just.
Well, but it's the same conditions as if you were to renovate.
Correct, yeah. That's probably, on average, what it should cost, yeah.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Commissioners, Elaine Lund. If we're able to go to the overhead, to the wolf here. There we go. That's a better,
Yeah.
yeah, better map of
Thank you.
this portion of the historic district. And the property in question at 507 is here.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Eleven, 11, 12, 13, 14. They're outside the boundaries, but they're still local.
I have another question.
You have
Do we-
another question for staff?
For the applicant, I believe. Do we know when the roof was replaced?
I don't think it was replaced. I think they started fixing it and then when they had the issue. with
Do
the
we
roof.
know when it was starting to be fixed?
Unless there's a date on that photo. Let's see.
Did the owner? I just don't think.
No.
I have no idea, but the question I have to ask is regarding the statutes and how it's written and what it means. So I think we need to wait for legal. I'm so sorry. We just need legal to be in the room.
Oh, that's fine.
Kamari had to get some documents in her office for the commission, so she'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question for Dennis. When we're looking at the hardship aspect of this, are we looking at the full renovation cost, or are we looking at potentially what it would cost to repair the damage?
The terminology and the definition of economic hardship refers to reasonable beneficial use, which I've always based on bringing the property back to, a practical condition. So, things that bring it to perfect highest condition, I believe, is exceeding what the definition of economic hardship intends to obtain.
It's all good. So I have a question, and it's in regards to the statute and its definition of Section 27-116F 1 through 3, item number 1, the burden of proof, sub-item D, the language of within a reasonable period of time. Is there any discussion within the statutes about what that particularly is specifically?
Sorry, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. That provision of the code of that section is not defined. Sorry, still catching my breath.
Absolutely. I apologize for making you speak.
It's based upon what you believe is a reasonable amount of time, but that's not that provision is not specified or clearly defined in the code.
Okay. I have no other questions. Anyone else have a question for the applicant or staff in regards to this case, the demolition component of it?
Madam Chair, what Kamara is handing out right now is a letter that we received when this was originally scheduled back in March from the Tampa Heights Civic Association and Land Use Committee, and this should be entered into the record.
Oh, okay. Does this need to be read out or no? Okay.
No, you could just, it's already in the record.
Okay.
I'm just providing it for the board to have.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions then for the applicant upon reading this latest piece? Anyone? Okay.
Maria, who is this? This just a civic association, not associated with the city?
I'm
Or-
sorry?
Who is this from? The Tampa Heights Civic
Correct.
Association? Okay.
Yes.
Can I comment on this real quick? Is that possible?
Actually, this is a component of the hearing where we ask the questions and you respond to
Oh, okay.
those. If we need to reopen, then that, you also have a rebuttal period after we finish questioning that you
Okay.
can speak.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Mr. Cubis? No? Right, seeing none. We will allow you the 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay. I do notice this letter is based on the original floor plan and elevation that did have a covered carport area on the side, or portico share. We did remove that, and we did provide parking on the side of the building, as per some of the comments that we received. I did go back through some of the other comments since May 26th, and we did change the appearance of the home to be more looking like the current home that is now, just a newer version of that. We did keep the columns similar to what we did have before. We did take the stone off and put the brick back on there. There are 3 other homes in that street, just on that one part of the street, that have the same columns. I did go through there and take some pictures of those homes, looking at that. And part of the, if this does help as far as with part of the demolition, and again, this happens on all projects we're involved in. We normally don't get involved in something like this and trying to save it, because when it gets to that point, but if it is approved to do partial demo on the home to find out how much damage is been done structurally to the home, not just from what this incident caused here, but over time, it is a very old home. And when we do run into these homes here, especially when they're off the ground like that, the wood is either in pristine condition for its age, or it's a lot of termite damage and a lot of water damage to the property. This home looks like it was probably neglected for a long time prior to this person purchasing the property. And I know when you buy the home, you buy the problems, but I would say if, instead of being completely denied, I would say give him an opportunity to explore what all is wrong structurally with the home, to have to rebuild it, because I know many of you know, once you start opening the wall up and you find problems, you have to fix it. And if you try to tie it back in, you have to rebuild far enough back to its good construction to tie it down. On this home here, we cannot just replace the roof, because new code says we have to strap the new roof down to the walls. But the walls are not strapped down to the beams, it does no good. I mean, to the floor joists, it does no good. And if those are not tied down to the piers properly, it still does no good. The only good that does if it's a major storm, the roof is going to fly off and stay intact, and the house is going to fall apart. So that's what I'm saying. Once you start getting into homes like this at this certain age, I love these old homes. I've had homes that were built in the 20s. I love them. But when something like this, I would like to have somebody go into there instead of just being denied to demo, to find out what's wrong with the home and see if we can save it. Great, I say I'm all for it. But the homeowner would like to, instead of throwing a lot of money at a bad situation, he would like to just demolish the home, rebuild it very similar to what the home looks like now, and to have a stronger home that's going to last for a long time, and not to have to constantly fix problems with the house.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case among ourselves. Anyone
So,
like to make a point?
well, I just have a question maybe for Kamaria. Kind of sounds like he's asking for a motion to continue.
Well, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. I did hear that, and I don't know if that's what you're asking for right now, is for continuance?
Well, as far as an absolute denial of the demolition for the property, to give the homeowner an option to at least get a better inspection of the home to see how much damage is to the home prior to this incident, instead of just a flat denial of demolition. But if he's allowed to demo the home, I'm sure he would love to get rid of the home, rebuild it to where it looks like similar to what it is now. So we're going to go back to the very similar colors to it and instruction. We did lower the pitch. Let me show you real quick.
Well, if you're going to provide additional information to the board, they've closed the public hearing. They would have to have a motion. The board would have to make a motion to open the public hearing if you're trying to resubmit or submit some additional information.
Okay.
But I just want to clarify for the record that if you're, the board is going to discuss the presentation in the case that was presented, you need to determine whether or not you're going to ask for continuance. But, you could listen to what they're saying, but you can't wait until they make a decision on whether you're going to ask for continuance.
Sure.
You can't wait to see what their motion's going to be.
Okay. I completely understand. I apologize if I was confusing there. I would like to see if it's possible to have the home demolished and so he can rebuild the home back properly to that. And if we have to do something else, we'll address it at that point. Yeah. Sorry for confusion.
So I just want to make clear, you're not asking for us to do that outright in terms of giving you a continuance at this time. You want to see what our motion is.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to see what your
Okay.
motion is. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
But then it's going to be too late. I don't know if he understands that.
I think he wants to hear our discussion.
Okay.
I hope so.
Anyone wish to make a point for discussion at this time?
I will start, please. I don't think that this petition for demolition is ready for prime time at this point in time. I will, from what we have on the photo record, I think we can honestly say that, yes, this is an older structure and that it has been sufficiently beat up. But I don't think that the burden of proof respecting demolition or relocation or retention has really been met to the extent that we could say, yes, it can be saved, or no, it cannot be saved. I do recognize that we have the Limestone Consulting letter, but we do not have, if you will, a photo essay of its current condition, exterior, interior. And we really don't have some form, and of course, Livestone is not here to discuss the matter. Hopefully, they have been on site. I gather from the letter that they've actually seen the building and been inside. Also, with respect, is another report respecting its economic feasibility for rehabilitation or reuse or relocation, which we don't have at this point in time. I recognize that a damaged building, quote unquote damaged, may be more extensive in terms of its cost for renovation, but so is the cost for new construction at this point in time. And what we're looking at is the potential loss of part of our fabric here for Tampa Heights. And that's what we're here to do, to see what we could do to maintain that existing fabric to the extent that's possible. And I have not yet seen a body of evidence in hand tonight to suggest that a demolition is in order.
Anyone else?
I just feel like, from what I've heard, we're making decisions based on assumptions. We asked a few questions, about the electrical, about, spans of framing, foundation. We really aren't getting answers. We're getting assumptions. And without on-site investigation, and we've got 2 quotes from contractors who've not actually been on site either, nor have they done any sort of internal investigation into the structure as far as what may or may not need to be done. What I heard was seal plates and deteriorated framing and different things, and all of those things can happen in structures of this age, as we all know, but we also know that they don't always happen. So if the building is truly eat up with termites and wood rot and truly has the brunt of 100 years of water infiltration and neglect, okay. But if it doesn't, what we have here is a structure that is contributing, and once it's gone, it's gone. And the question is, in my opinion, you can renovate this home for less than you can build a new one, but I've not been on site either, so unfortunately I'm, again, making a quote, if you will, on an assumption as well. So I just feel like we need more information.
I concur with my fellow commissioners. And I would also like to point out that the process, the establishment of a historic district and the maintenance of the quality of that district is a very difficult process, and many people have really gone above and beyond in terms of trying to maintain the historic quality, and that means maintaining the fabric.
Sure.
So we have, in general, set a pretty high bar for demolition.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other comments or points of discussion?
I'd say it's additionally, it makes me curious that the home has been owned by this owner since 2015, and with tenants, and since until at least most recently December of this year. So I don't think any of us disagree that the house is in need of repair, but we have been tasked with reviewing the burden of proof that the building cannot be retained on the site, and that demolition would be economically justified. And I think both of those are really difficult to do with what we have in front of us today.
So I agree with all my colleagues. I don't think there's anything more that we really can say. The evidence just isn't there, I think, for us to determine that demolition at this time is warranted. I do find it interesting that the applicant, the initial letter from the architect, the forensic architect, was almost a year ago,
Okay.
and that nothing's been done since then, at least from what we can tell from the photo documentation and from what was given today in terms of testimony. And so, as my colleague, Mr. Myers stated, we have a really high bar for what we're here to do and what we're mandated to do and what we're asked to do as trusted community members. We're all volunteers, but we have passions for architecture and construction and historic places. And when we see properties that some of us own historic properties as well, and we understand no matter the age, we have to invest time and money.
Sure.
Whether it's from 1990 or 1890, you have to invest money in your property, and especially if you're in the middle of trying to assess significant damage from potentially a storm or a mishap on a job, which I agree with my contractor colleague that that was actually Mr. Prokoff, that if indeed it was due to negligence on the job by another contractor, that was something that should have been chased immediately.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are a lot of factors here today, I think, that we are just very conflicted
Okay.
about in terms of the demolition. So at this time, if there are no other comments or points to be made, I'd entertain a motion.
Can we ask for a continuation so we'd have time to inspect the property for additional damage?
You may ask for a continuation at this time,
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
yep. So we need a date, please.
Well, the first date I have is September the 7th, it's the next available hearing. Is that okay with you?
And then the motion will also be for,
That's the next available.
ARC 22138.
So the next available date would be September the 7th, 2022 at 5:30 PM.
Okay, thank you. We will go ahead and incorporate the second component of this project as
And
well.
Mr. Fernandez, I was just, is that the date for the ARC 22138? Is that one also available?
Both cases, thank you.
Move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-25 and 22-138 for the property located at 507 East Hughes Street to the September 7th public hearing at 5:30 PM.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Those are four. We're ready. Oh. It's up to you.
Please
Good evening,
continue.
Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to the next agenda item, which is ARC 22-232. This is for the address of 908 South Willow Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The primary structure is a contributing structure that dates back to 1925. The underlying zoning is RS 60. The request this evening is for new construction as addition to the primary structure with site improvements. The approximate square footage of the existing structure is 2,167 square feet. and the proposed is 2438. So just under 300 square foot for an addition. At this point, I'd like to go through the photo presentation quickly with you. We have the Sanborn map that is on the monitor right now. It is the property that was highlighted in the green shaded area. It does face Willow Avenue. Willow runs north and south. There are two alleys that have an intersection that tees behind the subject site. You look at the irregular shape of the parcel. This evening, the applicant is coming forward with no variances on this challenging lot. Point of reference is you have Bayshore Boulevard that runs to the south of the site, and this is an interior parcel. This is looking at our vicinity map, showing exactly where it sits in the Hyde Park Historic District. The red indicates the local district of Hyde Park. And this is the contributing structure in the heart of Hyde Park. This is looking from above, once again showing the lot dimensions. Does face Willow. You have Morrison to the north, Bayshore to the south, and then you have a north-south alley that runs behind the property, and then one that comes up along the side that runs east and west. It's a Dutch Colonial. This is the front elevation of the subject site. This is looking at the front elevation and the north elevation as well. Staying on that north side, this is the abutting structure to the north. And some street shots so you get a sense of place. This is looking down Willow towards Bayshore, and then turn around in the other direction. There is some parallel parking on the street. This is the house directly across the street. Going back to the subject site, this is the elevation, which is the south elevation that flanks one of the alleys. This is looking down the alleys. This is looking down the alley. Subject site is to the left. And then back at the cross street, which is Willow. Moving back to the subject site, this is the rear elevation. Have been some additions in the past. Looking at the detached accessory structure. And just looking at one more shot, incorporating the accessory structure and the rear of the subject site. At this time, I'll have one of the agents come forward and provide a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? I am a representative of GM Construction. We are working on the project, doing both in-house design and as general contractor. To begin, starting with the front elevation.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Francine Massano. First presentation, thank you. So we're going to begin with the front of the home. This is a Dutch colonial revival. One of the main features of this is the gambrel roof. So we are maintaining the gambrel roof, but also the entrance to the home with the eyebrow porch. So I'm going to present a photo. You can see. Bring that up. Okay. Okay. So some of the elements that have been added to the house, probably in the 80s or 90s, was the tile on the front porch. So we're going to remove the tile. We're going to remove the light fixtures and the shutters and the planters, which were added after the home was built. And actually, according to the property appraiser's records, this home was built in 1918. And we are proposing for the entrance of the house, these elements, the porch is going to go back to a brick, and the proposed lighting is definitely keeping with the Dutch colonial revival spirit. So when looking at the home from the street, it maintains the Dutch colonial revival elements. So the difficulty in renovating this home was the lot. So we are not adding anything to the property that's going to require any kind of variance. Visually, the home will remain the same from the front. From the street, you will not notice the addition that's going to go on the back of the home. From the side of the home, you will recognize the addition, the second-story addition, which is going to be the master bedroom. So let's see. We are keeping windows and doors to match all the existing windows and doors, and of course, keeping with the requirements of the historic district, which is wood windows and doors. It'll be aluminum, wood-clad aluminum. So the door and window casings will also reflect the existing. We have taken measurements of both the door and the window casings, and we'll be repeating those in the new elements of the addition. The siding, wood-clad siding to match. We've taken note of the 7 1/4 cedar bevel siding, which will be used on the second-story addition. One thing that we are going to do is we are going to leave the railing that is on the, it's a one-story bump out on the side of the home, and there is a door from one of the bedrooms exiting and going out to a rolled, a deck that just has some rolled roofing on it. We are keeping that, that railing, but the new railing that will be going around the new deck, which comes off the addition, will be a more colonial style with the caps and a little bit more beefy columns, in order to match that colonial reviving. But the one on the left is existing. We will be keeping that, but the new will be wood, painted, and be more in the spirit of the colonial revival. One thing that we are very happy to be adding to the home is the roof shingles, if you can see that, a little bit of a reflection. The existing roof has this design format, and we were able to find, we don't think the current roof is existing, but it does have a very interesting flair to it. So we found a architectural shingle that will match the current style. So this is an example of that. So with the site, you can see this is the addition on the second floor. It is going to be above the existing first floor addition. It will be bumped out, extended a little bit slightly beyond. This is the footprint of the existing first floor addition. We extended it just a little bit, and we did put a deck which extends out. There's a very nice view of Bayshore down through this way. It would be very nice for them to be able to come out and sit there. We have all the proper setbacks and the separation of roof line to the roof line of the existing two-story accessory building. So with the floor plan, the existing floor plan, the first floor is right here. So this is the existing addition that is on the home.
I'm sorry, can you
Yes.
just pull this on our left a little bit? So it should be your left as well.
This way?
No, the other way.
Up the other way.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, there you go. Oop. Goes a little bit quickly. Okay, actually, this is the existing. This is the existing layout of the home. We are keeping this addition and just adding to it on the second floor. This is our proposed. We've just done some reconfiguration of the interior. For the second floor, this is the roof below. So we are taking advantage of the roof below, and we are adding a master bedroom suite, which is right here in the darkened, with the darkened lines, with the porch that comes off. So this outdoor deck area, and that's the railing that I was referring to that is existing that will remain. In terms of the elevations, so this is the existing front of the house. This is the proposed front. So as you can see, the only difference is the removal of some of those elements that we had on there, such as the shutters and the planters. One of the elements of the Dutch Colonial Revival is that very open porch. We are lucky that the height of the stairs, there are only 3 risers and the height is under 30 inches, so we do not have to put a railing on it. So we will leave that open because that is a very important element of the Dutch Colonial Revival. And you can see that it has the gambrel roof. So at the back of the home, this is the existing. So what we did, we are only coming out with the addition within this area right here. We are not impacting the look of the gambrel roof in the back. This is the existing first floor addition. We are just bumping out just a little bit in order to create a very nice master bedroom. The roof ridge is going to come out. It's going to be a hip roof that extends outward, covering the addition, but still retain the features of the gambrel roof in the back. So there will be a small elevated porch off the back of the home. So when you come out of the back door from the kitchen, you'll have a nice deck. And also from this room, which will be a family room, there'll be double doors coming out onto the deck too. And then you will exit and come down the stairs, and that's the driveway, and the alley is right over here. And one last piece of information is the side. I think these 2 drawings really show the outline of the new addition from the side. So this area is actually the porch and the roof. The pitch of the roof over here reflects the pitch of the gambrel roof in the back. So this is the area where it is. I put the wrong drawing in, so I sketched in that this roof line, we initially started with the roof line lower and decided to bring the roof line up to the existing roof line. And the windows are in proper placement and reflect the repetitive nature of the existing. Okay, I think that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. We reviewed the plans that were presented to us on May 17th, 2022. Just to start the staff report, on page 3, we use the Secretary of Interior standards as a reference tool to move forward. A couple of bullet items that I want to put into the record is for additions to historic buildings, construct a new addition so that there is the least possible loss of historic materials, and that the character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Locate the attached exterior addition at the rear or an inconspicuous side of the historic building, and limit its size, scale, in relationship to the historic building. This request is a little less than 300 square foot, and staff believes that it accomplishes both of those. Moving forward to the conditions on page 4 of the staff report. Couple of additional items that need additional discussion. If there's any new fencing that's going up, that she shows the fencing on the site plan, and we had talked, and I don't believe there's any, but that's something that could affect the request moving forward. Discuss the treatment at the foundation. Seems like the siding goes all the way down, and there's just very limited space by the photos and the site visit when I was out there. Discuss the termination of the corners. It appears that there's a weave, there's no corner boards on this particular historic home. And the last item that I had was to include or revisit additional windows on the north elevation, that it seems like they put some windows on that north elevation to respect that comment that I have. That concludes my portion of this public hearing, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. So now we are opening the hearing up for public comment. If there's anyone who would wish to come forward and speak for or against the project in the audience. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion. And then we will begin to ask questions. I'll start on my left with Commissioner DeCubis.
Could you just start by running down some of the things that Ron mentioned, beginning with the fencing?
Yes.
Thank you.
We are not changing any of the fencing that's going to be put up. That's surrounding the property. The fencing will not be changed. That will remain.
Okay, the next one was the comment about the foundation.
Foundation, we are keeping the siding, will go and terminate at the same location as the existing structure, and whatever treatment was at the bottom in order to provide some protection underneath the crawl space, that will match the existing.
Okay. And the corner termination treatment?
Corner termination treatment, will match existing. There are, the addition is going to remain, and any repairs or additions will reflect what is existing.
Okay, I don't have anything additional, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question about the porch on the front of the house.
Yes.
It states that there's new brick tile. Is that meant to be thin brick, or is that meant to be real brick?
I think we said tile, but we have to take the existing tile off. There may be some brick underneath, so we will have to evaluate it, especially in terms of the height of the stairs, the risers, and the height of the porch. So if there's existing brick underneath, then we will work appropriately, but the look will be brick. So if we do not have, if we have brick underneath and we are not able to use it, then we will put brick that's, that's typical for the use for a porch and for stairs.
Well, brick has to be brick.
Yes.
It can't be thin brick or brick imitation.
Okay, then we will be using brick.
I think you mentioned the windows were going to be wood-clad aluminum. I think they're actually aluminum-clad wood.
Yes.
Okay. One of the things I want to point out is in the addition, you shouldn't actually be, are you planning on duplicating details or doing some details that are similar but can distinguish the addition from the original architecture? Because the last thing we want to do, or
Right.
part of what this the standards say, is that when you put an addition on a property, someone should be able to tell it's an addition and tell where the original house was and where the addition stops, basically. So,
Well, in terms of interior space, we really needed to be able to maximize the space for a master bedroom suite. We went within a footprint that was reasonable, but it is going to be very, very obvious that this was not part of the original home, but it's incorporated well with the design, with the gambrel roof. So we're not interfering with the existing gambrel roof in the back. We are working with it.
right.
Right.
You said the aluminum railing that's existing on the side porch is meant to remain. Do you know when that was put in? Was it put in without a permit, or because if you're going to all this extent, it
Right.
would make sense that aluminum railing not be kept.
I do not have the current information as to when it was put in. It was not put in during the current ownership. We might be able to assume it was the previous owners, but we are not privy to that information.
And you said you actually studied having a slightly lower hip ridge on the addition, having the ridge of the hip roof slightly lower than the top of the gambrel?
We had entertained that in our discussions with Ron. That was our first proposal, and he urged us to go back and relook at and rethink the roof in the back, and that's when we did raise it up to meet the existing ridge.
Okay, I actually like it slightly lower
Okay.
than the existing, but that's all I have.
Thank you.
Are you able to confirm the existing windows have maybe like a 6/1 division? And are you
Yes.
planning to duplicate that on the back?
We are. When looking at my, my drawings on the overhead, I realized I did not put those in. So yes, they will have the buttons in there that will reflect the exact same windows in the rest of the home. Thank
And
you.
then have you and the homeowner considered replacing the railings so that the exterior, like balcony railings, are consistent throughout the home?
We had discussed that. There are some foundation issues that are being remedied. So the engineer had suggested that we leave them and that we do not do anything that will just impact that area. It's safe, it's secure. He recommended just leaving it. So that was upon the recommendation of the engineer.
And then had you considered duplicating that railing in the back so that you do have consistent railings throughout the home?
Yes, we had thought about that. I have a photo. If you take a look at them, they're really not thoroughly, they're not too bad, but I think being that there's going to be a very visible second floor railing and then a porch off the back, I think when we have the opportunity to build from new, we should upgrade the look of that and introduce railings that are really much more fitting to the revival look.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer?
Can you put up the existing and proposed north and south elevations again? Okay, so the drawings that were sent to us did not have windows on the north side in the master closet.
Okay, the final set that was recently sent did have those changes. The initial submission did not. So
Okay.
between the initial submission and then the final submission before this hearing, there were some updates.
Okay, so you have apparently overcome any objections by your client to having like 3 big windows in the
Yes.
master closet?
Yes,
Okay. And you're keeping all of the windows
yes,
on the south elevation?
correct.
And those are, I think that works, they're all, like 2 of them are in like the mudroom, right?
Yes.
And then, okay, so that, it's all, so that, thank you for preserving those.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Okay. No further questions?
Okay,
I have none at this time.
thank you.
I have a number of questions respecting detailing for your addition. Let us start with the addition of your lower porch.
Okay,
You can pull up your elevations, that might help.
okay,
As I read your elevations, I see this as an expansion of the existing porch, both in length and in depth.
okay,
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I see a crosshatch at your porch skirt. Am I looking at lattice work here? What is your intention here?
yes, there is some lattice work at the termination area at the bottom of the house. And currently, there's lattice work here. So when we extend the porch over, we had proposed to put the same lattice work, which would enclose the porch on the bottom.
What is your porch deck material?
It will be wood,
It is wood.
yes.
So in that same vein, you have a nice deck now flying off the backside of your master bedroom.
Yes.
What is the porch material there?
That will also be wood,
That is also wood.
yes.
Now let's talk about this one particular detail, because I don't think we have a sections cut through here.
Okay,
A part of your second floor addition is being lofted over and beyond the confines of your existing first floor addition.
correct.
Can you discuss with us the nature of those details? What are we looking at for, if you will, our structural work, our soffit work? What's happening to the column and to its bearing?
Okay, I'm gonna bring this up so we can see exactly where that is. That's going to be this area right here.
That is correct.
Okay. So there'll be one column right here, and then what we did was, in order to retain windows at the back of the house and the kitchen, we terminated the addition here and put windows on either side. So you're asking, what will that porch look like? I mean, it's gonna be typical, typical construction and enclosed to where it's, I don't think I don't have any photos. We can go back to, so where this comes out, I do not have a detail of that area. I will have to work with the structural engineer in order to discuss the members that will be required.
We have that, as
Expand
well
that.
as the same issue with your column as well, too. How is that finished?
Right.
What kind of capital, what kind of base
We were-
situation?
We were planning on finishing the columns to reflect a similar look in the railing details. So where the column has a base, and then it could have some trim around the top, but we are still in discussions and getting final drawings from the engineer in terms of the structural members that will be required to finish that area.
Do you have any catalog cuts with respect to your door hardware for your proposed new doors?
We do not have that yet. We can get that, that's not a difficult thing to obtain.
That is all the questions I have at this time.
Thank you.
I know you asked about the hardwood. Did you indicate the type of doors that would be in the new areas? You're showing, it looks like French doors at
Yes.
the ground, and then up above there are some,
The similar French door, I'm looking for my sheet with that example.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Those are the doors?
Yes.
The window seat. Sorry.
That's okay.
So are the doors then the aluminum wood as well?
Correct.
The aluminum clad wood?
Right.
And will they have buttons such as this?
Yes,
Or
just like that,
okay.
yes. And we are not changing out the front door will remain.
Okay. We talked about those. When we were talking about the porch, what is the material of the ceiling component?
Currently, we have not discussed putting anything on the ceiling, so would be open. If that's going to be an issue, then we can discuss alternatives.
It's gonna be open.
For the porch, which porch, the front porch or the back porch?
The one that's in the back, not the front. We're
Okay, done with
really
the front.
focused on the rear, because that's
Gotcha.
where the bulk of this concern is, I think, for the
Right.
project.
So we have not discussed what would be covering.
For
So
material for the
For
ceiling.
material for the ceiling, no, we have not discussed that.
Allow me to continue that general discussion, too. You have a very significant roof component over your addition. How are you handling the soffit detailings for that in terms of rafters, rafter tails, material finishes?
Okay, can you please repeat that, the
Okay.
soffit
You
details?
have a significant roof that's coming on over as part of your
Correct,
addition.
which is a
And
hip
it's-
roof, right?
Okay, which is hip roof. And it dovetails into an existing roof.
Correct.
Okay, the existing roof has its own body of detail
Correct.
as it is exposed.
Yes.
In terms of trim boards, in terms of rafter tails, if it has anything, or even of the soffit-type materials.
Correct.
What are you doing for your addition? Are you doing something different? Are you matching this?
We will definitely be matching these existing. The whole goal of this project, the house is, it's in very good condition, but it's very tired. And there are quite a few changes that were made in the 90s and perhaps even in the 80s. And we wish to really maintain, especially given the location, we wish to maintain that 1918 colonial revival look. So we are going through every possible detail and making sure, because there are so many details in the existing structure that are of good quality and definitely worth matching. So we are, you know, and the addition is only 262 square feet. So whatever, it's not going to be cost prohibitive in order to match the details that are in the existing home.
Okay. One last item, please.
Okay.
I remember you discussing a range of lighting
Yes.
that you want to bring forward to yourself in part of your front entrance assembly.
Yes.
Are you proposing any new lighting with respect to any of the additions or deck areas on the rear of the building?
The lighting that's on the back of the house will definitely be in the same grouping as the lighting in the front of the house. So it's definitely a colonial revival look.
But I
We
did
won't
not
be
notice any
stringing fairy
location.
lights in the back.
But I did not notice any proposed location.
I did not locate the position of the new lighting on the addition or in the rear of the house. I did not know.
Do you contemplate, or is the owner contemplating any ceiling fixtures or fans for the porch in the
No.
rear?
Mm-mm.
At this time, no.
No.
Great, I have no other questions. Anyone else with any addition? Yes.
One other comment. I want to go back to the rear porch column at the corner. It's a very prominent column, and I think
Yes.
there's a lot of interest in what that looks like and how it's proportioned and scaled, and it's not, the structural need for that column is going to make it a very skinny column, but
Right.
but the aesthetic need for that column means it has to be a lot beefier.
Correct.
Also, I guess I missed it, but the plans do not seem to match the elevations.
Okay.
The elevations show a first floor enlarged porch, but the plans didn't.
Okay, let's see.
I mean, I am scheduled for a visit to my optometrist soon, so I may have missed that.
Okay, floor plans. We've got, there we go. Okay. Floor plans. So, there's a current small porch off the back. So
Right.
this is existing. So the new porch will follow this line of the existing, but then because of site constraints, will come in and terminate back to the house.
Okay, I couldn't read that as a new porch.
Yes, sorry. So here is the first floor existing, here is the first floor proposed with the porch. Or it's just a slightly elevated deck coming off.
But with an elevation, it has railings and everything else on it, and a stairway, a step
Right,
off
it's
of it.
not, that is not
That's
on
not-
my, that is not
okay.
on my plan.
All right. Okay. I don't have anything else.
Any other?
Just a quick question about, is there a change in elevation between the slab on the addition or the floor level on the addition and in the kitchen?
No,
Oh, okay. Because,
everything remains the same, correct.
but it appeared as though that things didn't quite line up on the existing, the window heights were not quite the same on the existing
Window
elevation.
height, So, okay. So this window that is here is being removed.
Okay, so the new windows in that area are being dropped to the same level as the
Correct,
windows on
correct,
the addition.
right.
Oh, I get it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oops, any others? No? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, if you have any. Anything you want to add or respond to anything?
The details, I can understand your concerns with the details of the column and how the ceiling of the addition that extends over the porch that comes off the kitchen. I can understand your concern with that. We are working with the structural engineer because there are some existing structural issues that are being worked out in order to shore up the foundation. So those details will be included in the package when we go to permit. If you wish to see some column details, and a little bit more information about the railings, I'm happy to be able to provide that. But the image that I provided is exactly what the railings and the column would look like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we will discuss the case. Anyone wish to make a point at this time? Anything that we need to consider?
I think those issues that she just brought up can probably be discussed and approved via staff. Maybe we want to keep a list of things to include, like the column, the hardware, the ceiling. Is there anything else?
Soffits.
Yeah, I have the ceiling and the hardware.
Door hardware, column detailing, finished structure. Excuse me, thank you very much. I have door hardware, the column detailing. We have the finished structural detailing.
And the railings and steps, I think, at the rear porch.
Yep,
since they're
railing and
not-
steps,
And then,
lighting in the rear.
and I think what would help also is the additional wall section that cuts through the porch and the new addition crossways to assist with that understanding.
I think, it's not so much that the details are missing, it'd be nice to have them. I think there is there is sufficient intent on the documents that we were presented tonight that although we may have a question about what exactly that detail may be, there is intent that it will be detailed and sympathetic in nature to the existing building, but we're not the building and we're not the builders. I don't think there's anything really out of hand to the point where the staff cannot coordinate these details. It's not like we're being presented anything that's, patently out of place. I think this is ready to go.
I agree, there's only a caution, and I want to tap Mr. Prokop for this one. In terms of the roof line, I caution I've seen this before in just existing, it doesn't have to be historic, trying to match an existing ridge line. Just be cautious about that as you're continuing to develop your drawings and your documents, especially once you get in there and you understand your framing. Because I've seen that go wrong, and then you get higher. So just be careful there.
It'd be better off just to match or be sympathetic with an existing roof slope than trying to meet a particular point.
Agreed.
I think it would be simpler, construction-wise, to be a little bit lower. And that way, if something does go wrong, you're not seeing anything from the front of the building. So even if it's just a foot lower, foot and a half lower even, might be the right direction to go.
Okay.
Other than that, I agree. I think from what we heard tonight, what we've seen tonight, the fact that the client is very concerned about peeling away some what some of us may concern as errors in the past. I commend the owner of this property for trying to do things to amend those, so,
As well as respecting the existing contributing structure.
yes.
And the site conditions.
Yes. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 22-232 for the property located at 809 South Willow Avenue with the, 908 Willow Avenue with the following conditions: that structural details for the addition porch and roof are submitted to staff, that the structural and architectural details for the new column at the addition are approved by staff, that hardware selections are approved by staff, as well as the porch ceiling material, that new lighting locations are approved by staff, that soffit details are approved by staff, and that the railings and steps at the rear addition are approved by staff. Because based upon the finding of facts, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines in the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale and massing, as well as alignment, rhythm, and spacing, and maintaining the quality within the district are consistent with the guidelines.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, please state, before we move on, do you understand all the conditions put forth? with
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Those
very much.
opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The last case on our agenda this evening is ARC 22-235, located in the Tampa Heights Historic District at the address of 404 East Oak Avenue. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for the new construction of 5 single-family homes and 5 accessory structures, along with site improvements. As we go through the presentation and as you read through the staff report, you'll see that these are referred to as lots 1 through 5. And the staff report has comments particular to each lot and building. At this time, I'll move through the photo presentation. On the 1920s Sanborn map here, we have the subject property shown in green on Oak Avenue. The red line that you see is the outline of the local historic district. This is on Oak Avenue in between Jefferson Street and Central Avenue on the north side of Oak. And then looking at the location map here, you can see that this is on vacant property, again on the north side of Oak Avenue between Jefferson and Central Avenue. And looking at the modern day aerial here, you'll see that they are the vacant lots. You can see the proximity to the interstate. Now looking from Oak Avenue north onto the subject site, and at the remainder of the site a little further to the east. This is the contributing structure that's to the east of the subject site, and a non-contributing new construction structure that is just to the west of the subject site, at the corner of Oak and Jefferson. And this is the rear of that, that building. Looking across the street to the south, there's a contributing structure here at the southeast corner of Jefferson and Oak. And then directly across the street there, we have a vacant lot. And looking a little further to the east on that south side, continues to be a vacant property. This shot is looking east along Oak toward the interstate in the distance. And this shot is looking west, so the subject site would be to your right. There's an alley running behind the subject site, here looking east towards Central Avenue, and then looking west towards Jefferson Street. And that concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and begin their presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, board members. My name is David Mechanic, 305 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. I'm an attorney representing the developer Onyx and East. I have with me this evening Jacob Egan from Onyx and East, and the individuals who will do the presentation from Sharp Design Studio, Director of Design Aaron Barker, and Architect Diego Duran. So with that, I will ask them to the podium.
I have a thumb drive. I have old school paper as well, but. It's a little concrete block. Okay. If you'll step back here. That's it. And then to scroll. Just makes it a little bit bigger there. I have to just use page down, page up. Okay. Thank you. Hello, I'm Aaron Barker, and I represent Onyx and East, and we're excited to present this back to you all again. We're excited to be contributing to the historic fabric of the community. We did study the scale and the heights and the widths of the existing structures and the community around. We feel that there are a lot of modest structures as well as 1-story, 2-story, and in larger structures, and ours at the 26 feet contribute modestly, but also we've upscaled the detailing on it based upon feedback from the staff report as well as the community civic association and city council approval. So the massing and the form are relative to the existing areas where we have 2-story structures, very large front porches now, minimums of 8 feet. And I'll get into, I'm going to discuss some of the global things that will pertain to all of them. So we've increased the depths of the front porches to a minimum of 8 feet. One in particular is 8 foot and up to 14 feet at its maximum, so it really creates a wonderful outdoor living area. The setbacks, we are maintaining the setbacks with the allowable setbacks, and we have staggered the structures. So from when it was originally presented, so we have 2 feet, 6 feet, 12 feet in max total. The orientation of the structures and the home sites are all facing forward and are consistent with the typical large front porches, as I mentioned. And I did want to mention that we did have the porches at 50% of the front facades, and based upon the Civic Association feedback, we did expand them to full width porches. The materials of the district, we are using hardy board or similar cementitious covering of sidings, columns, smooth finish. Rafter tails, exposed rafter tails would be wood painted, and bracket details would also be wood where they're incorporated into the homes. The trim around the windows and doors, we did add additional level of detailing. We're thinking that the houses are 26 feet wide, which is consistent with the area. As I mentioned, many are smaller, many are larger, but we wanted to give another level of detail around the windows. Instead of just a typical 1x6, we have a 1x6 with a headband, the sill, a little quarter round at the bottom, which is just a transition from the siding to the sill. But you'll see that in the cut sheets. The facade and the proportions, we received the comments from the staff report, and we did make some adjustments to the facades. We, in particular on the sides and the rear, we did incorporate some redesigns of the some of the rooms to incorporate stacking windows and addition of windows, which you'll see when we get further into the plans. I touched on the entrance and the porch projections. All of them are open on 3 sides, so we think that is in keeping with the community as well. The roof forms, although there are predominantly hips and gables, well, there are hips and gables, predominantly there are gables. We have incorporated, we did a study on some hip roofs, so you'll see one in one of the sections that we have. It's still showing a hip roof, but the elevations are correct and showing gables. We do have some accent hip roofs, but we have changed all of the rear elevations to rear-facing gables as well. The garages, which are detached in the rear of the lots and alley load, as it was touched on earlier, do incorporate the hip roofs, and we did receive positive feedback on that. The property behind this, rear-facing, do have hip roofs on 2 of the 3 parcels. And it isn't uncommon in the community to have the detached garages with hip roofs. I touched on the roof forms are predominantly gables, and maintaining the quality of within the district. We feel the structures are modest, but as I mentioned earlier and started out with, that we want to bring a higher level of detail, or a nice, comfortable level of detail, and withstand the test of time as well, considering our Florida elements. So with that, I will touch on the site plan, which we're showing the 5 lots. The 2 on the east and the west end have also a side porch that are, all of the porches are beadboard ceilings. Just as I think of these things, I'll throw them out to you. You'll see the front porches are 8-foot minimum at the shallow end, and as I mentioned, for example, the number 1 lot, the porch goes up to 14 feet, but they all create a nice room, outdoor living area. We did have a request, and this is just a rudimentary streetscape with our 5 houses in the middle, missing a little hatch on lot 2, but it shows up in the construction documents. The 402 Oak Avenue, the finished floor is at 24 inches above grade. 410, it's fenced, and when I compared it to 402, it is slightly lower. Our finished floors are at 18 inches above grade. Oh, I keep using the mouse. We provided some cut sheets. So on the first plan, and I will tell you that the original plans that you received, we have updated those, and that's what I'll be running through with the detailing. So there will be some variation. Colors are just our initial studies, and we want it, I won't touch on that too much because I know that's not necessarily why we're here, but we wanted them to be consistent with the warm colors of the community. The plan 1 or lot 1, we are two front-facing gables. We have the exaggerated or the extra detail around the windows. We've stacked windows. And to the right, I believe we had a smaller window at the front door, which we've enlarged. We are showing two variations in door styles on the elevations. One is a full light, and this is a 3/4 light with a panel, a recessed panel below. The porches are finished in concrete with the 1-inch lip and a 3-inch reveal. We have an example of our exterior lighting and lantern. We will have recessed lighting in the ceiling of the porches, but our exterior lighting will be a wall sconce, if you will, or an applied lantern, and the door hardware. The colors are probably not going to be brown, but there'll be some variation. It will not be identical throughout the homes. The garage door is a 7-foot high garage door, 4 panels, and the man door at the garage door will be a half light, or we're calling it a 3/4 light here, but I think that's more of a half light door. So in looking at the plan, on the rear of the elevation, which is the living on the ground floor and the master bedroom on the upper floor, we did add windows at the upper floor and redesign the back to be able to stack and add a window on the back at the upper floor. We've added a rear-facing gable with a louver detail. The brick is a thin-set brick with L corners on it. And you'll see the garage is a hip roof. All of the overhangs the soffits are sloped. And the porch is an exposed rafter tail porch with a V-groove ceiling at the rafters and a beadboard ceiling at the floor of the body of the porch. On the side elevation, I'm sure you can see a little bit of a difference from the originally submitted plans where we have added windows and stacked them. As I mentioned, we've redesigned some of the plans, or actually all of them to some degree, with an interior to allow this to happen. We have worked to be consistent with the window sizes in that we generally have 2 different window sizes. Some are in kitchens above countertops, some are egress windows. Now, obviously, some rear or front or rear facing. Excuse me. We did. I believe this was in the original, but I'm not 100% sure. In the garages, we did apply a window to the east elevations. So at the east of the site, that faces the existing 410 oak. At the west end, it does face the commercial. It is a house up front, but it has commercial parking in the back. So we have opted to keep that window on the east side of that garage, but would be obviously open to flipping it. It is facing the new, another new home, our new home beside it. So the details that we're providing are, as I mentioned, at the right of this document, the two-story detail. We're showing porches with box beams, exposed rafter tails at the overhang, beadboard ceilings, 2-story porch, first floor, the 2-story structure of it is first floor CMU, second floor frame. And there is one error here where that roof should be a gable because that's typical. So we need to come back and correct that. The additional detailing, which are applicable to all of the plans in one form or another, are at the garages. If there is one plan that I believe has flat soffits. I'm second guessing that because when we change it to gables, but we'll touch on that. But we do have the detail at the garage for slope soffits as well. At the primary structure, at the porches, slope soffits, the gable, the overhangs were extended to 24 inches on the hips, on this overhangs. At the rake overhang, we did study them at 18 inches for the primary as a standard, but we pulled them back to 12 after studying a lot of the homes in the neighborhood. There were a large number of them that did have 12-inch overhangs at the gables. And we do have one home that we have, which you'll see, which is a 24-inch overhang at the gable, but it has a little pent roof in front of it. So this general detail sheet is something that we're using right now for all of the plans. So the second elevation, lot 2, and again, this is where, for some reason in our PowerPoint, when it went into the cut sheet here, we lost this horizontal siding at the gable end, but you'll see it in the construction documents when it comes up. We have front-facing shed roof, front-facing, a double gable, bracket details, as I mentioned, are wood, most likely painted wood, exposed rafter tail. Windows are vinyl clad, and this is an example, although the color for the French glass door is dark, it's just an example of a full glass French glass door on the front. And again, the siding details and a first blush look at color. The roofs are all the Timberline charcoal. This is the construction documents for that lot. Again, on the right side of the porch is 8 feet deep, and on the left side we're closer to, I think, 12 feet or 11.4. Sorry, my glasses aren't quite that good. My eyes are getting that bad. This is the correct front elevation showing the horizontal siding fulfilling the entire gable. We have the shed roof above the second story with the brackets. We did entertain metal roof there, but right now we're showing shingle. And on the side elevation, we did add some front-facing windows at the corners, and the windows are stacking wherever possible. And in the middle of the elevation, on the left side elevation, the west side, you'll see we have a double window on the bottom, and we did redesign a little bit upstairs to be able to center a window above that. And I want to mention that all of the porches on the front, which are in excess of the building structure, but the porches that are on the side and the rear where they're inset, we did add boxed beam detail and trim detail on the sides and the rear, which is consistent for all of the plans. All of the windows as well are simulated divided light, so we will have the grills on the outside. Some of the patterns, we have varied the patterns from 1/1 to 2/1, and you'll see the variation, but we believe they're all historically correct for the area. Lot 3 is a double facing gable with a little bit of a metal accent at the second story with the pent roof, the overhang there. We have extended that gable out to align with the 24-inch overhang below, and we have the bracket detail above. This is one instance where we did maintain an accent window on the second story here, which we have in this case, let me go back one second. Well, I'll go forward when I get to it. I believe that's the laundry room. So we're a little bit limited on the length of that window, but felt that accent windows were not out of character. Again, everything else is consistent relative to door hardware, lighting. This is an elevation where we did receive feedback from one of the civic association's summaries, and they asked us to add an additional column at the front porch for a 4-column porch. And we felt strongly that it should frame on the projection of the upper floor. So we follow those lines down. We are introducing the recessed panel columns here on this elevation. Again, the exposed rafter tails at the porch and slope soffits at the upper floor. The construction documents, actually, that front-facing accent window on the front is a closet. So, but we did maintain it to be a small accent window there. So it is the master closet and the only closet for that bedroom. And we were a bit concerned. We did add a window in the end, so you have hanging on each side and a nice window at the end, but the front is a smaller accent window. The elevation is, again, this is just the construction documents, but we did convey the front recessed columns on this elevation to the back. We'd have the recessed panel column, again, the box beam and the trim detail on the side, on the back and the sides. This is an elevation where we did add windows on the front right, forward, and on the back, as well as the left side, the west side. Sorry, I probably should be using directional tags there. Again, the detail sheet that's consistent for all. Lot 4 is where we did introduce. We looked at a hip roof here, and in speaking with the City of Tampa and the historic experts, and introduced some shake at the gable, shake siding and a hip roof in this location at the porch. It would obviously wrap. All of the front porches would not project past the front facade of the house, which was also a comment we wanted to be respectful of. And lot 4, I think I skipped, no, sorry. Lot 4, the floor plan, and again, just to point out, and I think this was touched on in the prior presentation, that there are 4 floor plans out of the 5. Lot 2 and lot 4 are the same floor plan, but varying elevations and textures. Lot 4, again, this is just the construction document form of it, and the hip roof, the shake siding at the upper floor. We did one other comment, and it was a discussion during the review with the historic experts, is where we would place the garage doors on the detached garages, and we had them on the side, and we have moved them to face the back of the houses. And again, on the east side would be the windows. On the west side is a siding wall or a hardy veneer, which would match the house. This is basically the duplicate of lot 4, and where the windows are aligning and creating that pattern that's consistent in the community. And lot 5, this is another small error. It shows a gable and a hip, but the construction documents are correct. We did initially introduce board and batten on 2 of the elevations, and after discussing it with the historic experts and looking at your staff report, it was suggested that we switch that out to a shake siding for an accent. It could also be horizontal. We wanted to introduce board and batten, but it's tough to reference when you're referencing T111 as your example, and that's not a good example. So, but there's a great garage just outside of the community that does have board and batten. But it's all null and void, so what we wanted to do was introduce shake as just a variation to the elevations. And this is a smaller version of Lot 1. It's a different floor plan, but again, it does introduce the side porch as well. And you'll see on the back where we did, just as an example, we did redesign and we have additional windows and closets at vanities in the master bathroom and adjusted windows along the side, so we do have a pattern. The rear-facing gable and on the front porch, we did, I will point this out, this is the plan which does have a side entry door at the porch, but we felt it was important, and although not prevalent, there are some examples, a few in the community, but we like the idea of the door opening out onto the living room, what we're considering the living room area of the porch, which is the large area. And again, rear and front facing, and the side elevations, again, we added windows towards the front, which were several of the comments, and at the back, stacking windows consistent. This is an example of a 4/1 window pattern. All of the rear facing doors at the small porches are full glass, and just odds and end comments that I want to make sure I get in. And that's where we stand right now. We're just excited to be coming into the community and look forward to your questions and feedback, and I'll try and answer them as best as possible.
Thank you. And that concludes the presentation for now?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to the staff report.
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. We met with the applicants more than once to review the designs and to discuss the comments that were in the staff report. I believe that all of the comments in the staff report have either been responded to directly or addressed through redesign. With that, we find that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. One thing I should note is, which I failed to note earlier, is that there is a PD site plan on this site. It was reviewed by this board back in January and has been approved by City Council in March. So the site plan is set by that PD. And with that, I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lund. At this time, we'll open the hearing to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience who'd like to come forward, speak for or against. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that component and we'll begin asking questions. And anyone? Any questions?
If you would please, I would like to address your site plan.
I think I can do this. No, I have to go all the way back. Oop, there we are.
First of all, I do note that you have a certain variation in terms of your front building line and porch line from building to building to its front property line. Can you discuss how you developed that? I can understand why it's there for the variation, but what is your running logic with that, and how does that fit within its existing context?
Well, we did look at the structure. First of all, we looked at the surrounding neighborhoods and how there is some variation. Many of the homes in the community do sit very far forward on the lots, and many sit a little further back just based upon the timeline of when they were built. With regards to this block, the home, which is now a business at 402 to the west, does sit very far forward, and we felt it important to have that structure. It is a bit of an oversized lot for us, and we do have some separation there, but we pulled that structure forward and felt like from there we wanted to look at the street pattern and have it not float back, but step back and then come forward and respond to the home at 410, which is a number of varying elements to it. So
You're kind.
they're thank you. So we just felt like it was important. Obviously, we wanted to stagger them a little bit, but felt like it was important to create some sense of street harmony, but also there is some to be respectful of the backyards too. And although the 3 center plans have plenty of backyard, we wanted to make sure that these were homes all the way around that not only contributed to the community but also to the buyer and thought about their lifestyle within the homes. So
Thank you.
I kind of rambled there.
Next item, I note on the backside of all of your dwellings, a square box-like element. Am I actually reading these as your air conditioning elements?
Those are our condensing units, yes. We have opted, I'm not sure that they can be in the side yards. And we also, because of the proximity of the homes, whether they could or not, we felt it important to be in the back. We are still studying whether right now they're centered between 2 windows of the ground floor living.
Mm-hmm.
As to not necessarily have, we had this discussion whether to push them to the corner, but we have a rear-facing window directly above it. So we are looking at whether to shift them a little bit, but we felt that they should be in the backyard, and we will probably screen them for the outdoor lifestyle of the homeowner.
Can you actually enlarge the site plan for us so we can see that better? It's a little tough to read it at this scale.
Let me see. Oh, let's see if I can do this without.
If you just hit the plus button to the left of the
there we
number.
go. Got it. I'm going to
You
get
should be
it
able
up a
to. There
little
you
bit
go.
higher,
Thank you.
and I'll scroll it over.
And is this the only, if you want to call it, utility item that resides on the backside of this building, or where are your other utility items going to be located? As an example, I don't know if you're planning on gas. Definitely you will have an electrical, meter set up.
Our electrical panels are either on the back or the side, and I can give you a little bit more description on that, a little bit more clarification. So on lot 1, our panel is located on the side. In this, we have a mudroom drop zone from the garage coming in. And so that would be located on the side.
I see that.
On lot 2, it is also on the side. We have a smaller drop zone area. Our water heaters are located within, these are interior features, but they're located to the back of the units. On lot 3, we do have it on the back of the house, and this is one location that is more favorable to move the condensing unit, to the right side. Lot 4 is the duplicate of lot 2, so again, our panels and meters are on the left side. And lot 5, they are again on the left side in the larger mudroom area. But we don't foresee, the only one that has the panel and the meter on the back is lot 3. It could be moved to the side if we deemed it fit, and again, that is one where we could move the condensing unit to the right.
And then you would need the separation between the 2 elements.
Yes.
I also note on your site plans, your fences and gates as a separation between the public and your private areas as well as from your neighbors. Do you have any detailing for those?
We do not have detailing on those. What we did envision was a 6-foot-high fence, privacy fence, and the typical, I don't think it's like a 3/4 diameter, but square rail, vertical. On the front, the fences, there are options for a 4-foot enclosure fence on the front. And it, again, would be a picket-style fence, and we could provide that detail if.
Thank you very much.
On the fencing, the fencing is intended to be wood or metal or?
I believe we envision it to be metal, just for the longevity
Okay.
of maintenance.
Okay. So we talked about the fencing, we talked about your units in terms of utility. Is there any on-ground paving other than the sidewalk at the front? And then the sidewalks at the front are to be?
They would be scored every 3 feet, and we do have a note, I believe that is the requirement, and there was to be a note added, and it is here. I can see it better up here. Bear with me 1 second. Sidewalks to be scored for historic district guidelines.
And then at the garages, it looks like it's also concrete, the intended apron or drive?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we got that. I saw that you had the elevation of the 2 existing properties with your 5. Do you also have a site plan that shows them and their relationship to the existing street edge? I mean, you've talked about it, but visuals go so much further to help us appreciate.
I apologize, I only have it on the left side, and you'll see the diagram
It's
on the
really
left
light.
side.
It's really light.
Let's see if I can you, come on. Can you see that? This is the front facade,
Okay.
and that are the steps. And I have a partial photo. Yeah, I have a partial photo, but I don't know how to work this. There? I will need your assistance. This is the structure at 410.
Oops.
And it's unfortunate, it was an attempt to get the, a benchmark for the steps at the front.
Okay.
But that we feel is consistent with, our front facade on that is probably 12 feet back, and we feel this was probably closer to like 15 feet.
To the front of the porch?
Yes.
Okay. All right. In keeping with this, what the context is like, you mentioned a lot in your presentation, having looked at the context, having looked at existing properties, looking at roof lines, forms, shapes, those sorts of things, architectural features, that you were looking to for examples of how you might want to accommodate historical precedent. Do you actually have any of that available for us to review tonight from a visual standpoint?
The only thing I really have, and these are for varying, and they're just 2 examples.
Oops, we're upside down again.
Oh.
I know, it's confusing.
I'm used to presenting that way. So this is one example. This is at 401 Ross. It's a contributing structure. It does have the porch on the front-facing gable. This does have a bit of it's a wider house. It's a bigger house, so it has a front to back gable. Just a similar of the front-facing gable. This is the side elevation, which was a side street, and I apologize, I did not write down that address. And it is, there were just a number of homes in the area that had the front-facing gables, the shed roofs, many of them that did have the hip roofs that wrap the corners, but we just don't have that liberty. Then the last one is just a big,
You can
a
put
big
that up.
box.
You can put that up.
I'm not sure this contributes too much except for.
Where's this one? Is this in this district?
It is 2212 West Morgan, and it was an example of closed soffits and just the wrapping porch. It does have a pattern porch that, well, I guess this one does not wrap, but it is open on all three sides.
Okay.
So that was part of the just examples, and I apologize, I do not have. I do have a picture of the one. This is the property to the west of us, the 402 Oak, with a big tree out front, but that sits very far forward on the lot, and as an example of that, it does it is 24 inches above grade at the front, but along the street edge on the left side, that site does slope up to almost zero. They have a porch on the back as well, and there's no step down at that street side.
Okay. If anybody else has any questions, please. This is a very, I just want to say that there's a lot for us. And even though we've previewed these, just seeing it again and hearing what you have to say, so.
Oh, I understand.
Can you put the front elevations back up?
Okay, I'm going to scale it down. This view?
Yeah. Was there any thought put into, I know we want to keep these houses under a certain elevation and keep in keeping with, you know, what's going on in the neighborhood, but every one of these houses now is identical as far as the elevation is concerned.
Well, I think there's different reliefs on them relative to the porch depths and and the under porch areas. There are also a little bit of a different relief at the upper floors. We did look at, as I mentioned earlier, incorporating hip roofs, but felt that with the feedback we received that the double gables were a more prevalent. Most of the homes in the area, a lot of the homes at this scale are one full gable. That unfortunately wasn't an option for us relative to our four floor plan designs and square footage program. We did vary the widths of the projections, as you will see, from say lot 1 to lot 3. The most prominent structures are a different width as compared to lots 2 and 4, are a little bit narrower on those projections. And we also did look at incorporating another shed hip roof at the porch, but upon consideration and feedback, we eliminated that, and it just, the massing and the proportions just didn't feel that was what it was telling us it wanted to be. So, and we also feel that, I mean, there are homes in the neighborhood that are patterned and aren't necessarily, they're much more patterned than these are, in that I can tell they're the same house beside each other, as opposed to these are similar in footprint, but we feel that the different reliefs will read differently, as well as the introduction of color and texture, brackets, no brackets, the pent roof, the hip roof, and so forth.
So are all the roof pitches the same, or do they vary? It was hard to tell on the.
Right now, they all are the same, and again, they're currently at a 612 roof pitch.
I'll let you design it.
The I'm sorry, one more comment on that. The porch roofs vary from a 2.5 to a 3/12 roof pitch.
Okay, thank you.
Does house number 3 have a different siding, a different horizontal siding than the rest?
We don't currently call that out, but we could. We could vary the siding as with regards to the reveal.
Yeah.
The one comment that we're hearing, and of course this may change in 6 months, but is that certain sidings are not obtainable at this point. So we could make a note to vary it if you'd like, and then depending on the availability of siding, you know, the reveal. I mean, I don't know if that's acceptable.
I personally think that would be perfectly acceptable. And I also had a question about the shake siding. That is intended to be painted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And number 5 has that siding on the porch. Somehow it doesn't. I find that it's really not a great thing there.
And
It could be. It could certainly be horizontal, could it not?
it absolutely could be.
Anyone have questions? And I'm sure I have more.
In some part of your presentation, you mentioned that the site plan with the staggered porch front distances from the sidewalk, changing the distance from the sidewalk to the front porch, mimicked other places in the neighborhood or in the district, and I'm actually more attuned to seeing them align, the front porch lines align with the specific setback, than be staggered. And it creates a much more harmonious sidewalk.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. So as staff explained earlier, this is approved the setbacks are already approved
Okay.
by the PD zoning.
Okay. Somewhere else in your presentation, you mentioned thin set brick or L-shaped corner brick, which I also don't think falls into the approved materials for our district standards, our design standards.
Okay.
Okay.
12-inch overhangs at gables, to me, seems very, very, oh, go ahead.
Hi, Commissioner. Just, there has been precedent prior to these cases where on new construction, thin set brick with the appropriate corners can be used for detailing on new construction.
Okay.
Just to, I know it's your first night, so I just thought I'd share that with you.
The other question I had is, have you considered moving all the utilities, the AC condensing units, the electrical panel, et cetera, to the garage walls?
We did
And
discuss.
keeping it away from the actual where it would bother residences sitting on the back porches and that kind of thing?
We did discuss that, but there's an extensive cost to getting the refrigerant from the garage and the water lines from the garage across the backyard to the house. And it's quite common. We can look at shifting those we would probably want to do it consistently to the east corner and away from the porch. Again, considering also that windows nowadays are pretty soundproof, I mean, as best we can, it wouldn't be a terrible thing, I don't believe, but we could get them away and out of the yards.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to go back one step. And with regards, we did look at the front porches, them being a little bit more consistent. And we did get feedback from the Civic Association on that. And also that played into the depths of the porches. So that's why we ended up where we were at.
Okay, I know, this is my first night, so.
No, this is my first presentation, so.
The only other comment I had is that I think it would, may be an improvement if all of the roof pitches did not match. If the possibility of there being a different roof pitch on maybe house 2 and house 5 or something to break up. Because right now, like my fellow commissioner said, they all look almost identical. And especially with the elevation that's up here right now, showing that that it looks like a 12-12 on the blue house. And obviously we can't tell what's on the 402, but it's a non-contributing structure really anyway.
Right.
It really shouldn't be
Right.
used as precedent. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question following up on the slope question. I'm sorry. Thank you. Is this intended to be pre-engineered truss systems or conventional? Because we heard in an earlier presentation, because of we're all dealing with it, right? With the current conditions in the market, whether or not you can even get those on time.
We are pre-engineered truss.
Okay. Can we go back to the site plan? I'd like to look at something again.
Hold on.
And I'd like to focus on the front porches and zoom in, please. To the street edge, if we could, please. A little bit more, just one more.
Zoom in?
Yeah. So what are the elevations on the porches again?
The finished floor of the homes are at 18 inches above grade.
The porches themselves?
So the front porches would be 14.
Okay. I'm looking for steps. So it looks like lot 1 has maybe 1 step, lot 2 has none, lot 3 has none, lot 3 has 1, lot 4 and 5 do not. Are there steps that I'm not getting? Are they hidden in those lines between the columns?
They are not shown consistently on the site plan. They are shown on the elevations where we would have 1 step down from the porch.
So all of them would have 1 step?
Absolutely, yes. It's unknown yet because I don't have the final topo, but there, as I mentioned, that the 402 does have some slope to it, which is the adjoining property. We may have some slope to these and be able to gain a little bit more. So,
okay.
But at a minimum, we're at 18 inches above grade.
Are any of these intended to have wing walls of any sort, any kind of presentation to the ground as they?
We have not incorporated those at this point.
Okay. I know the porches are only 14 inches. Is there any thought for railings or anything like that to sort of add to this variation that we're talking about?
We did discuss that, but we felt that it would inhibit the street interaction that we think that the fabric of the community generally promoted historically, with people sitting on their porches and interacting with people, walking their dogs and those sorts of things. We could certainly entertain that, but just felt, and it wasn't a cost issue. Well, it's always a cost issue, but it wasn't it was more about a lifestyle in that we were developing these outdoor living areas and we wanted to maintain that interaction and that open space as opposed to, you know, a 36-inch high or a 30-inch high. We're not bound by height restrictions because it's not required as a retaining of, you know, a fault.
Understood.
So,
yep.
But we just felt like it was better promoting that outdoor living and interaction.
Okay. On these porches, are any of them going to have, or is there any thought that they would have ceiling fans of any sort or lanterns that would be outboard of the ceiling themselves?
We have only looked at the wall lanterns, and I guess we could certainly option ceiling fans outside. I don't know, and it's probably, considering the size of these porches now, a good thing to add.
When we ask these questions, we're not necessarily saying we want you to add them. We're just wanting to understand the full story, so that as we're thinking about what you're presenting, if there's another element that comes within that public view realm, we want to understand what it looks like.
I think because what I would say, because the porches have grown large and they are outdoor living areas now, they're just not, 2 chairs. I
Right.
wouldn't, somebody's gonna install, it may not be us, but they will be installed at some point, I'm sure, after they come before you guys, but, I wouldn't think that would be unreasonable.
Okay.
We have not currently called them out.
Okay. Continuing with the street scene and the living and all of that, I want to address each of the entry doors for each of the 5 residences.
Okay?
I was unsure in the presentation if the full light glass doors were intended to be the front doors or if the half lights were.
The half lights are only at the garages.
Okay?
On lot 1, we have a 3/4, let me zoom in. I'm gonna become a wizard at this thing here before we're done. It's better than I do at the office. So lot 1 on the left is a 3/4 light with the recessed raised panel below. Lot 2 is a full light. Lot 3 is a full light. Lot 4 is a 3/4 with a panel below. Lot 5, which has the side entry door, is a 3/4 with a panel below.
Okay.
But we could certainly vary those. We just thought it important to have not one door pattern on the front.
Mm-hmm. But all the windows look like they're pretty much being treated, well, lot 1's different.
Lot 1.
2, 3, and 5 have the same window treatments in terms of the full light at the bottom and the 2 lights at the upper.
I'm sorry.
In terms of the mullion pattern on the
Oh,
windows.
Okay, excuse me. So lot 1 is 1/1, 2 is 2/1,
Right.
3 is 2/1, then it's 1/1, and then 4/1.
Now, are these single hung or double? These are single?
Single hung.
Okay,
And the simulated divided lights on the outside.
yeah, okay. There was a question in the staff report, and I couldn't remember from the detail sheet that you had. If we could look at the detail sheet that you had that you said represented all of the projects.
I'm gonna zoom back out. There are 2, well, I'll let you ask your question if I can get.
It's regarding the soffit details. So the first one would be about where you have exposed rafter tails.
Gonna zoom out a little bit again and I'll get to it. Okay. So I can, oh, one too many. Uh-oh. We have a detail, for example, here, at the porch where we've called for exposed rafter tails. Our ceiling is 1x6 V-groove. We would have vents, we're thinking to be the round vents in the freeze band and the blocking. And then when you go into the porch, we would have a beadboard finished ceiling.
Okay, and your rafter tails are 2x6, it looks like, correct?
Yes, they are.
And then barge rafters, if you have any, what are the sizes for those?
Well, we currently have those at 2x6. There is a note that 2x8 is also common. We currently have them at 2x6, just for consistency. And we felt it was in keeping, and also, unfortunately, we have to think a little bit about supply.
Yeah, okay. Everything will be wood in terms of the detailing, the trim, or at least hardy board?
It will all be hardy board. The rafter tails will be wood, and the brackets will be wood.
And there will not be any foam
No
on the
foam.
project? Okay. And then, can we look at a wall section that shows windows in CMU, and then windows and the wood, and then talk about how they're being treated to allow for more of that shadow play that we typically see in historic construction.
So what we have on the CMU is what we're suggesting, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me zoom back up. We are suggesting for longevity and maintenance and waterproofing, the concrete sill, which would be wrapped in hardy. So we would have I don't know if you can see it well there. Oops. So we would have a hardy board installed on the top of the sill,
Okay.
and there would be a small quarter round below. Obviously our hardy trim and 2x sill above, 2x header above, all wrapped in hardy. The windows are set in. Currently at the upper floor, again, this is due to maintenance and manufacturer's specifications. We have the flange mounted windows at the upper floor. We're suggesting the hardy trim surround. We are calling out the hardy trim surrounds that are consistent. We could recess the windows and basically instead, it's a 6-inch exterior wall. So we could recess the windows 1.5 inches by using a 2x4 basically header to flange the window to, and do it that way, if that was more appropriate. We are a little concerned about just the manufacturer spec and that installation and our Florida weather and rain. And we wanna,
Yep.
we did discuss the turned flange, but the supply on those would be, we might have a house with no windows, unfortunately, for a while.
Okay. Are all porches to be concrete finish, or were some of those with brick pavers or some other?
We currently have them all as concrete finish with the 1-inch lip and the 3-inch edge.
Okay.
The stem walls are all stucco finish. I did not mention that before.
Can we go down the wall section and look at that? That was gonna be where I was gonna go next. Can we look at a section without the porch in front of it?
I am not sure if I have, oh, heck, sorry. Let me zoom out. I think we currently just have the one typical full section. So if you were to, let me do this. I think I can answer your question.
Okay.
In two ways. So our grade line is at this point. So if you think of that, then our stem wall would be the 2.5, over 2 courses of our siding would obviously cross the finished floor of the house for weatherproofing. And then what I want to do is
we want to understand is how it's terminating, right, with the sill plate or sill trim
what we're
between
showing.
the siding and the concrete stucco.
We are currently showing a 1x6 trim at the bottom. It would have a 2-inch overlap on the top of the slab. So that takes us to 22 inches from the bottom of the trim board to grade. So there would be 22 inches of stucco wall.
Okay. Of course, that might vary depending on your topo.
Yes.
Now, you had stated that that detail sheet was for all of the lots, but there are some variations. Do you have any other wall sections representing any variations from those typical details that we should?
Well, the only thing, I mean, the detail, the wall sections, what we tried to do is simplify it at this point, just because there are 5 plans. And so the ground floors would be CMU, all 4 sides would be a siding. At the upper floors, it's all 2x6 frame with siding. The variation will be at our columns at the front porches. We varied the sizes of the columns slightly, so they may be 12 inches up to 16-inch columns. So that's where we're indicating on our details the variations of the box beams, which would mirror the size of the columns.
Do you have a section for the garages?
The only thing we have for the garages is just the overhang, and again, the slope soffit. I believe all of the houses now will have slope soffits. So the garages will also have a slope soffit, because that was one of your comments, that the garage soffits needed to match, correlate with the principal structures.
Okay, that's it for me for right now. Any other questions?
Yeah, if you could go back to that wall section that showed both of the windows, it's disconcerting that the first floor windows are recessed at a certain location and the second floor windows aren't as deep. And that'll be very apparent from the street and not, it'll be disconcerting. I'm not, so if you could just pan down a little bit, scroll down, so you see how the second floor windows are way forward of the first floor windows. And the depth of installation, you know, it's drastically different. It's not even, it's not slight amount.
Well, we have 2 options there, as I mentioned earlier. One is the turned flange window, which we've checked into it, and it's just very, very, very difficult to get. The other option, as I mentioned earlier, was it's a 2x6 wall with exterior grade sheathing and then your siding. If we take that header, if you think of it this way, if we take that header to a 2x4 and recess the flange window back to that, we're gaining an extra 1.5 inches. It's on the challenge here is it's a catch-22, as we can't go further in because then we're flanging to just a 2x above it. So we think the best method, if we do recess them in beyond the front flange mounted windows, is to do it the one stud width, not stud width, one header width in, which is the 1.5 inch recess, then your plywood sheathing, and then your hardy trim around that. So you'll be gaining that.
Is there a dimensional relationship to the first floor?
I don't have that answer at the moment. That would say we would right now have, and I apologize because I don't have this specific on me, the 1.5 to 2.25 recess. Would you say that to be 2.25 recess at the upper floor, not counting the hardy trim? And then at the ground level, they typically, just by the nature of the window, if this is an 8-inch block, 7 5/8, we're at 3.5, just over 3.5 at the center point. So it's somewhere probably close to 3 versus 2.25 above.
The closer they can be to each other, be ideal.
I understand, and I think I do, and we'll revisit the turned flange again It's just a matter of, that allows us to recess them further, but we feel the best practice, if we were going to do a standard, would be to do the double 2x, recess them in at least one, which would give us about the 2 1/4, not counting the hardy board, which is another inch.
You could make those front face walls out of 2x8s and bring it back another header dimension also to make them line up.
That's a possibility. We can consider that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you clarify where you are proposing 12-inch overhangs?
The, would be the front-facing gables. Help. And part of that, a lot of it is based upon, let me go back to, and these, like I mentioned, were a couple of examples for various reasons. Oops. See if I can do this. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Thank you. This is a good example of a gable end that is close to a 12-inch overhang. This one's a little deceiving because it does have the crown and it has the trim board, and then so it's tough to determine, but there are consistent in the neighborhood 12-inch gable end overhangs. And we did actually look at the 18-inch and had the discussion with the historic experts and landed upon the 12-inch for the gables. We do have one lot 4, which is the pent gable on a, the small hip that is a 24-inch with the brackets.
There are a couple notes in the staff report that reference a screened porch option. Have those all been removed?
We eliminated those.
Same with the second-story balcony.
Eliminated that as well. That was on lot 1 and lot 5. Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just running through these to make sure we didn't miss anything. There are a couple of references to adding beams at the rear porches. I saw that on one in particular. I don't remember which one.
We did add it on all of them. I go back to PC.
Now you're a pro.
I'm not going to take your job, that's for sure. So what we have here, this is an example, and it would be consistent on the sides and the rear on where we have the recessed porches. We have a beam. Let's see if I can zoom in here. So the dashed line is our ceiling line. This is the bottom of our beam, and we've wrapped it in what would be typical of a porch beam historically, which would be a 2-inch on it. We're calling out over a 10-inch hardy, smooth finish hardy.
And at that corner, you're also wrapping that with trim as opposed to medium?
Yes, and I'll show you the side. So at the back, that would be where it wraps the corner. And we've made the conscious decision to run the banding past the vertical, as I mentioned earlier as well. On the window surrounds, we really didn't get into that too much, but we're looking at the 2x on the 2-inch on a 6, 4-inch, and then the 2-inch sill. We've made a conscious decision to run the banding, the head banding, and the sill banding past the side rails.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to sort of blanket ask. When we see notes like incorporate additional windows on west elevations, you've mentioned several times that you made modifications after.
Yes.
So these
Yes.
I didn't notice anything jarring on window location, so I'm just,
Yes, we did do some extensive design, and like we removed coat closets in the foyer to create a window in the foyer which matches the window above, which, for example, one was added into a master bedroom closet and those sorts of things, but yes, we have.
There's a comment for lot one, sorry. There's a comment for lot one that says the cap atop the brick pier should be concrete.
Yes.
Was there one? I don't remember seeing that.
Yes, there was, and it is,
Oh, okay, there it is.
yes, and we've called it out with the height and the reveal, concrete cap, 3-inch, 1-inch overhang, and the column is at 3'4", which was also a requirement, or a suggestion, but.
Okay.
I believe we touched on this a bit, but I think we're probably gonna end up discussing it at more length, so before we close your side. The front porch roof lines, across all 5, there's one that's got a varying roof form. Has consideration been given to varying those forms from the front elevations?
There was consideration, and we did look at it, and after consulting with city staff, we did actually come back to the shed roofs, which are quite common in the area. One of the reasons that we also went away from it is the proportions of the house relative to the second story widths and projections. They just didn't, the massing wasn't, we didn't feel comfortable with. So we felt like, but with stagger of the houses, even though the minimum porch widths are 8, they range from the minimum beyond that, let's just say on that porch is 9'4", all the way up to 14 feet. So there's a difference. And the porches, it's when they get deep like that also, it's not prevalent to be hipped. Most of the porches that are hip roofs are much shallower. So that was basically our roundtable thought.
Sure. I understand that. I think what we're gonna end up grappling with is seeing 5 of the same roof pitches at the top and then all those consistent facades, but we'll chat through that. I just wanted to make sure there
No, I
wasn't
appreciate the
feedback from you
comment.
beforehand.
And it was, it was several discussions we did have, and we came back to this.
All right, are there any other questions for the applicant from anyone?
Is there any required landscaping? Because this is 5 singles instead of, and it's viewed that way rather than a kind of a PD. Multifamily.
It's a single family detached units.
Right.
Yeah, there would not be, you don't have jurisdiction over landscaping on these
Okay.
projects.
No.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
Yeah, going along that lines, was there any requirement in the PD to do any street front between sidewalk and curb cut tree planting, which is typical in the neighborhood?
That's, again, so the PD controls everything?
It's set, I'm just
on the
asking if there
setbacks.
was
Okay.
any.
That's all addressed.
We didn't, that's what.
Yeah, it was all.
not on the record, so can you state?
It has been previously addressed and city council approved. And we are meeting those, what is required by them. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, I hope I've answered everything as clearly as possible. I can only say that we're very excited about this and excited to be in the historic district. And And it's been a rewarding experience, I believe, with, working with everybody here and the civic associations. And we met with them 3 times and incorporated their feedback, and it was all very positive. So we're just, I look forward to your comments, and we think that we have a product that we are very proud of and that will withstand the test of time in Florida with the environment and maintenance and community contribution. So that's all I have right now.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Would you mind leaving up the elevation, the 5 elevations?
Oh, yes, thank you. I was going to ask her too.
Yeah. Emma, is that okay there?
One more. I think that's
about
good.
that?
That's good.
Oops, sorry.
That's fine.
Let me,
Well, actually, I'd like to see that.
yeah, I was gonna say, I went a little too far.
I like the purple one.
I tried to get.
And it's pink fuzz spray paint on the window.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
All right, so the commissioners will discuss the case at this time. I think the biggest thing is what we're looking at. I agree with Commissioner Boyd. I think this is probably the biggest item for discussion amongst us, having heard some of the questioning of the applicant. So while we do not have any ability to talk about the PD and setbacks and things like that, there are other ways to work it. And I think one of the biggest issues for all of us sitting up here is the variation in what we're going to see when we walk along the street. And I appreciate the varying depths of the porches and allowing the facades, at least the ground level, to push and pull. And honestly, we typically don't see streets this way, but most of us are architects, and almost all of us read drawings, and we can visualize and put it in 3 dimensions for the most part. So there is something about a neighborhood when you walk through historic neighborhoods that are not similar to suburbs that were developed in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2020s. And even though there might be pattern books that were utilized, Sears catalog houses come to mind, even when you find communities that incorporate those types of formulary plans, there's enough variety that you don't read it. And they typically wouldn't be placed this consistently close to one another. And I appreciate that there has been a lot of effort put in. I appreciate the fact, number one, that these are all single family home detached structures. That's so key. But I do think that there are enough examples in at least the 3 images that you produced from your contextual review of the district that there are hints of variety that you could push and pull from those, even your little purple neighbor, to help you to think about dealing with small, narrow lots. And honestly, these residences actually are quite commodious, in my opinion, when you start to think about what you do have in historic properties, when you're looking at the typical 50-foot wide lots. So I think there are architectural elements. I do think roof slopes, as one of my fellow commissioners noted earlier, are one way to think about it. Architectural elements, how windows are incorporated. Is there the ability to play with the facades that project in a different way? And then again, the window patterns and the doors themselves. Not every door has to be a single door. You could have a door with skylight either side or both. And then also perhaps how you trim and detail, looking at a sill board in addition to the header board, those sorts of things. So corner board details, those sorts of trim features as well. And then I don't think every single one of these has to be a horizontal sided. I understand we're all in a weird market situation, but if you want to entertain another material choice such as the shingle style, then look to your precedent study, look around you and see what you can do with it other than sort of sticking it on one wall in the porch area. So those are my comments.
I think this elevation in particular shows all of the front porches just all lined up and having a straight line across. Even something as minor as a tiny little gable in that porch, a little gable into the shed, might break up those four identical front porch elevations. And again, varying the roof pitch on a house or two. That's all I have.
It's like almost too perfect, that repetition that we see. And I do want to commend you that the amount of detail and thought that you put in, and even the pre-approved site plans, like including all of those different porch steps, like definitely appreciate, and I think that this is going to be super successful. But final tweaks on that, and again, those 5 porches and the 5 roof lines. And I agree, the window patterns, like it's all very, and we know they're going to be a family always, but how do we give them a little bit of their own identity as to not be so suburban?
And that's exactly what it feels like to me, is suburbia America. I think we could see different roof pitches. I would like to see maybe some varying elevations. I know from a development standpoint why everything is 2-story, obviously, but man, it would be nice to see even a single story in the mix. But again, I realize why. The one hip roof, to me, just right now looks kind of out of place.
Well, that was a mistake according to the presentation.
Yeah.
On the far right, oh, sorry.
So, I think the development as a whole is definitely headed in a very positive direction, and I think that in a very short period of time, you're going to have something that we all can sit here and agree and say, wow, this is a nice looking development. We've had so many multifamilies come in front of us lately that, again, I can't say enough that I'm excited to see single family detached. But, I'm the lone contractor here. I'm not the architect of the bunch, and my design ideas may or may not hold any weight. But again, I don't know. It's just to me, it just looks cookie cutter. As nice as the designs are, one here and one there, and not all in the line, I think they would be perfect. But unfortunately, they're all here together, sandwiched in between 2 more historic homes, and I just feel like a little different element on each one, even subtle elements, might get us there.
I'm going to be an outlier on this one. Contrarian. I think that the applicant has done a fairly decent job in nailing a traditional vernacular frame structure for these developments. I think they got the language down. We see 5 buildings. I see a lot of variation in them as they stand now from one another. I think color is another element that we don't review here that can make a big difference. This is, to me, not a whole lot different than we can find in other areas of our city, historic districts and bordering districts, where a developer once upon a time would have a lot or 2 or 3, and you would see the same thing over and over and over again. Well, these are not the same things over and over and over again. There is a slight variation to them all. And I think at this point, to ask for something greater in variation, more stark in variation between one dwelling and another, I think is, I think would diminish the impact of what's going on here. I see a cohesiveness as opposed to a chaos that which it could easily be if they were all wildly different from one another. I appreciate the vernacular nature that we're looking at, and there is enough salt and pepper here to make a difference between these buildings. If I had to quibble at all, you know, a couple things that I'm not entirely sold on. I could live with them, but I'm not entirely sold on. I'm not entirely sold on the shake as an addition to this vernacular. I would rather see a whole shake building than just a partial, as an example. That's just me. Another thing I'm not very sold on, and we don't see it here in this elevation, is the nature of the front yard picket fence. Because we don't see what that impact is.
Having not actually seen an example of what their intent is, I think it's very hard to have a comment regarding that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can imagine it, but
you know, the thought here, and it's been presented several times already, this is all about that street front. I cannot imagine one thing that'd be more impactful on all of this development than what is that fence.
well, again, that oftentimes that's the way homeowners apply their own hand to their property. And I would certainly hope, and I know that's an option, I would certainly hope that the homeowners that come and buy these houses, and even over time, they put their own personal stamp on it to help with that variation. Yeah.
And we, yeah, exactly, you know, they're a paint job, they're, whatever they decide to put on their porch decks.
But again, we're talking about structures that are hopefully are gonna last 100 years, just like the historic properties. And so that's our task here, is to understand whether or not these are consistent enough with the intent of our purview, right, and the design guidelines for this district. What makes this that much more critical is that we have 5 new ones sitting next to one another, sandwiched between 2 existing, 1 conforming, 1 non-conforming. And the conforming is actually pretty much non-conforming because of those additions, but I still think there needs to be more variety. I also think that not all the porches need to be the full width of the house along the front. There are plenty of examples where you don't have full width and they're just as nice to be on. But that's my opinion. Any other comments?
I think that a front-facing gable on one of the shed roofs for the porch is a wonderful idea. Thank you, Mr. Prokop. But I think that if we try and differentiate these too much, then we start to head toward the cute. And I don't think we want to do that. And I think that you've given all of this attention to vary the depth of the porches and their distance from the sidewalk. And I think that that will be much more telling for the person who's walking by. I think that you've built, you've actually built the variation, not just in the elevation, but in the spatial quality of each of the houses, and I think that that's very, very positive. So I think it's ready. Thank you.
I would also just add, if the fencing, as was just brought up, could be not necessarily I think you mentioned 4 foot in the front and 6 foot in the back. I think a front fence well below 4 feet would be more appropriate to keep the the communication between the sidewalk and the porches. And you know, a picket fence is never 4 foot. When you think of picket fence, it's never 4 foot tall. It's 3 feet or something lower than that. I think would be more appropriate.
I also just wanted to bring up, because we see this front elevation and we focus a lot on it, the rear elevation from the alley will be 5 identical garage structures with 5 identical garage doors.
So that was something I wanted to address, and I apologize I didn't ask this question, but the garage doors themselves, I don't feel that they're appropriate. They're massive 2-car doors. I feel like each of them should be given due consideration as well. It's kind of nice to have a little difference in that alleyway. A lot of us walk in our alleys in some of these historic neighborhoods. There's a lot of variety. And I don't agree that they should have hip roofs. I don't know where that's coming from. I have a gable end home. My garage is gable end. It's historic. So whomever said that they're typically that way, I don't know, I would argue that point. If you felt really strongly about the gable ends, maybe you make that a variation. But definitely the garage doors need to be reconsidered. They can be that monolithic door, but there are so many ways that you can make them more appropriate in terms of making them look like there's 2 doors that are paired. You know, you can still get that from any of the major manufacturers. So we see them all the time. And then thinking about, you know, do they have lights in them? Do those light patterns vary based on the lot that they're in? The price differential on those, you know, if you're putting lights in, they're pretty close, at least in my experience. And then in terms of the windows on the east and west side, they seemed a little strange. They seemed a little low to me, the sill height. So I'd review that. But other than that, the location is okay. But I think the garage doors are the biggest.
Good call.
Any other questions or comments or concerns?
So what we're looking at.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, commissioners. I haven't heard anything tonight that I don't feel comfortable doing at staff. I understand the direction with the variation and having the uniqueness. I think it's something that the team has heard before from staff. So they've been very receptive to working with us. We are held to the PD. We understand that limits the ability of the commission, and that's why when we're at the PD recommendation phase, we're stressing to you the importance of considering those factors. But given our current caseloads, I think that's something that I feel comfortable taking on if the commission feels comfortable delegating that to staff.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no other comments or points to be made, anybody want to entertain a motion?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 22-235 for the property located at 404 East Oak Avenue with the following conditions. That AC condensers are screened and any relocations of condensers are approved by staff. All fence and gate locations and specifications are approved by staff. That all steps from the porches are incorporated into your site plans. That all plans and elevations are updated to coordinate. That the garage door specifications be reconsidered and consider incorporating variety into the garage doors. Consider modifications to roof pitches and forms between the units for variety.
Coordination of the recesses for framed, for windows and framed walls.
Yes, that the section be updated so that the first and second floor elevations have the same reveal for the window depth. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights side guidelines for the city of Tampa for the following reasons. That orientation, alignment, rhythm, and spacing, trim details, and the quality of the district will be maintained.
I'll second the motion.
Do you understand all the conditions that have been put forth here tonight as a component of the approval?
I do, may I pose a question?
Certainly.
Just a clarification.
Yes.
Just a clarification needed. With regards to the same reveal on the windows, it will be challenging to get identical reveals. So do we have some liberty there if we can gain, as I mentioned earlier, the 2-inch, 2 1/4 inch versus 3?
We can amend the motion, so I would suggest that we amend it to as close as possible between the masonry condition and the framed condition, that the reveal, the inside of the window units is closer to.
What do I need to do?
We need to amend
You
it.
have to amend your motion.
The whole motion?
You have to amend as, I mean, you didn't. Maria Pettis-Malka from the city attorney's office. So she's asking to amend that condition. You could amend that condition.
You don't have to do the whole thing.
Okay, I'd like to amend that condition so that the window reveals are as close as possible and approved by staff.
And then do you second the
I'll second the
motion as
amendment.
amended?
And we are in agreement with the conditions as set forth here tonight?
Yes.
Okay. All of those in favor, please state aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We do have one more item before everyone leaves, at least for the board.
Thank you.
Thank you all. My other half of my concrete block. Thank you.
Dennis will
Thank you for your
lead
help.
us through that.
Yes.
Remember, we only got elected, like 2, 3.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. In accordance with your rules of procedure, each May, we schedule the election of officers. That was continued last month to tonight's agenda. So I think with a full commission, it's an appropriate time to have the election. We will be electing the position of chairperson and vice chairperson for the next year. With that, normally I'll begin with accepting nominations for the chairperson and then confirming that that individual is willing to serve in that capacity. There can be multiple nominations if you see fit. You can choose to retain your current chairperson and vice chairperson or elect a new individual. So with that, I'll open the floor for nominations for chairperson.
I'll nominate Susan Klaus-Smith, our current chair.
We have a nomination for the current chair.
I'll second that nomination.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, just confirming your willingness to serve in this
I am willing to
capacity.
continue to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, if we could have a vote, show of hands for those in favor of Chair Klaus-Smith to retain the position for the next year.
Aye.
Self-serving aye.
So unanimous, congratulations. We will open nominations for the vice chair. Currently, the vice chair position is held by Commissioner Boyd. So we'll be taking nominations in the same form as previous.
I nominate Commissioner Boyd to continue as our vice chair.
We have
I will second that motion.
We have a nomination for Commissioner Boyd, and is Commissioner Boyd willing to serve in the capacity?
I am.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations for the vice chair position? Seeing none, go ahead and take another vote for that position, for chair, for vice chair position and
Aye.
Commissioner Boyd.
Aye.
And once again unanimously, so congratulations. And with that, that does conclude our business for this evening. Thank you.
We are now recessed. We put everything back in here. Make sure you take your presentation.